Don't question what happened. Wait, it's gone? I think I fixed the echo. How did I fix the echo? Good old resetting stream elements. Or Streamlabs. Or OBS I meant. Fuck! Whoa. Shit might still be broken, but it's fixed. I think I know why. I think because my headphones...
It's okay. I just got caught up in something.
But it kept going to that.
Actually, didn't you ask me to help you look for work? What kind of... Oh, right. Your old man's craft. How could I forget?
Pay attention to him. The rest of them I did not pay
Speaking
attention
of,
to.
how's he doing? Is he feeling any better? Oh, that's good to hear. I have been thinking a lot about him. If I could get some more time off, I'd love to pay him a visit. Actually, while we're talking about him, is he still living in Port Ormos?
Yeah, he's been retired there for a while.
If you could find the time, please write him a letter. Please pass on that recently, faith in the Scarlet King has taken root in Port Ormos and has begun to spread across Sumeru. He has a quick temper and has always been a devout follower of the Danger Archon.
Well, again, he's not.
I don't want him to get into a fight with those Scarlet King believers because of a difference in beliefs.
Oh? So, who are you siding with in all of this? The Academia or the Scarlet King? I'm so jealous of you. You were born a child of the desert, yet you chose to betray the Scarlet King, and now you spend all your time with those crooks from the Academia.
Akeem!
God damn!
I mean, you've also become a believer of the Scarlet King.
What's so strange about becoming a believer of the wise Scarlet King? In fact, aren't you the strange one? The one who still can't pick a side?
Can't pick a side? Me?
Whoa! Paimon had no idea you'd be so good at this! You really zeroed in on the issue and put it right in front of her. It might feel a bit overwhelming for Sataria.
We love fixing the stream.
But once everything is over,
That's a great
I'll be
feeling.
sure to pay her a visit to her mind and explain everything. Anyway, let's keep going.
Why is it back?
Come on! Sataria's already started talking with Shishan!
It's not back, the audio's just shit. Okay, wait. Hello? No, the audio's just shit now and the echo is me. Perfect, never mind, we're good. Oh! That's why. Okay, I have to fix my old settings. I forgot I reset my setting for the podcast, so everything's fucked.
So,
I will just make new
Shishan,
ones then.
have you noticed anything weird in the city lately? Like, as if someone was trying to preach to you about something?
Oh, right. Speaking of strange things, I celebrated the Sub-Zerus festival so many times that I lost count. That was really weird.
Wait, how could you be aware of that? That should be impossible. Nothing in the report indicated anything like that.
Are you still failing to realize that the Academia's lowly tricks could never deceive all of Sumeru's citizens?
Okay, yeah, the quality
Shishan,
is shit today.
don't tell me that you've converted to the Scarlet King as well.
That's fun.
What an
That's good to know.
absurd question. You make it sound like I should be ashamed for becoming a believer of the Scarlet King. in reality, shouldn't you be the one who is ashamed? You, who works side by side with the academia and treated people as nothing more than experimental subjects?
Please, please stop!
Was that Lamine speaking?
Even now, Satari is still trying to run from her problems. She can no longer justify everything to herself. Hey, she's trying to talk to the guards! What should we do? This is the most important part of all. Quick, get ready.
Hey yo, what the
Mercenary,
fuck? Hello?
you're a member of the Corps of 30, correct?
Yeah.
Please help me pass a
have to
message
do
to the
some
Watcher
testing.
right away. The situation in the city
Okay,
is
it
getting
sounds
out of
really bad.
control.
Please, try to remain calm, miss. Tell me what's happening in the city.
Heretics are infiltrating the city, and they've already converted many residents to their side.
Heretics? What kind of heresy are you talking about?
The Scarlet King! Many people I know have suddenly started believing in him, but he's long dead. It's impossible.
Yeah, and his tomb is
Miss
fucking-
Zataria, nothing is impossible.
You know my name?
Magic, bitch.
The Scarlet King is immortal, and all who defy him will one day pay the price. You must face the truth, Zataria.
Not the smile.
You tread
Not
a
the smile.
treacherous path, and the longer you ignore it, the tighter the Academia's grasp on you will become,
Yep.
and the deeper you will be ensnared. Child of the Scarlet King, never forget that the desert that belongs to you
Oh.
lies elsewhere.
What's so strange about becoming a believer of the wise Scarlet King? In fact,
Oh, the
aren't
shadows are-
you the strange one? The one who still can't pick a side?
Because it happens with Sino when he's walking.
What an
Yeah, it's
absurd
really light.
question. You make it sound like I should be ashamed for becoming a believer of the Scarlet
Oh
King.
no, we broke her.
Sataria, why haven't you gone home?
It seems that no matter where I run, I only keep finding more believers of the Scarlet King. I have to say, this is a familiar feeling. I've also been running from my guilt this whole time. Guilt over my part in the Sage's plans, and from ignoring the letters from the children of my homeland. But no matter how
Oh.
much I may try to ignore or get rid of it, my guilt always
You won't necessarily lose your research opportunities by facing the truth. Besides, did you really want to conduct your research while carrying such heavy feelings of guilt?
How do you know me so well? Are you truly just a believer of the Scarlet King? Or are you the god himself?
She's like, you don't get to have a moment.
That's
of
not
peace.
important. The important thing is to pass judgment on the Academia and its sages, and to correct their mistakes. If you could provide some assistance in this matter, perhaps it could serve as
gonna-
a form of atonement.
Welcome to us hating
I've actually never
authorities.
believed in the gods, but I've always believed in serendipity. Your appearance must be a fated opportunity for me to get out of
Miss,
this
you
wretched
$5 in a
situation.
dream.
Please tell me, what can I do for you?
Bet you got
How
$5 in
much
a
do
dream
you
to his
know about
name.
the sage's current activities?
You don't even got $5. He
I
broke
was
shit.
just one of the designers for the massed dream harvest scheme, which is what happened around the Sub-Zero's festival. But I know very little about the full scope of the overall project. I'd assume that only staff with the highest clearance
Ow.
would have access to those confidential documents. I've just been working to meet the Grand Sage's specified requirements. However, there's something that's been really bothering me. I heard that a scholar who was previously expelled has returned to the city, and even the sages are still quite wary of him.
To fight against the Academia,
Oh,
we will need
I
to
know
figure
exactly
out the
who this
nature and the
motherfucker
purpose
is.
of their work. Is there a way for us to get
Shut up.
access to the
Turn on my other
confidential
thing.
documents you mentioned?
Turn on my other thing to hear how the
It
audio
should be
is.
possible if we're willing to take some risks. After all, I'm an assistant to the Grand Sage, and I've
Time to
been
go
working on
see
many
a
tasks
blonde
outside
hair
of the
bitch. Not a
project.
blonde hair bitch. Got to go
One
see a
thing,
blue
though,
haired bitch.
I won't be able to transfer the documents to you through the Akasha once I get my hands on them. The sages have always closely monitored all activities within the Akasha. Let me see. Let's use the most primitive method. Send
Yeah, you
someone
have
to pick up the
topic quality.
documents tomorrow evening at the Academia entrance.
The Academia entrance. Wouldn't that be too conspicuous?
Don't worry about that. I assure you, this won't be a trap. I'm only suggesting this location because it'll draw more scrutiny for me to leave the academia again. It'll be safest for me to distract the guards long enough to hand you the documents.
What the fuck did you...
Alright,
What did you
I
send
trust
me?
you.
I'm scared.
So, if I were to successfully complete this task, would it mean I've atoned for my wrongdoings?
That'll depend on the judgment of the Dendro Archon.
The Dendro Archon. That's right. Her people are the ones we have endangered.
That pretty as
As
shit.
the god of wisdom, she's also the one responsible for judging and guiding the scholars. Maybe it's time for me to find a god to believe in.
Just as Nahida
Damn, y'all believe in God
predicted,
now?
we've managed to bring Sataria to our side. The Traveler's execution was
I've been here for an
ingenious.
hour,
She's the one who deserves all the praise.
and we
Well,
just realized shit
now
is
that
broken.
we've made plans to meet again tomorrow evening, all we can do is pray for Sataria's mission to go off without a hitch. Pray? But if we're going to pray to the gods, aren't we just praying to you? God of wisdom and guardian of the scholars? No. The truth is the true guardian of scholars. I've always believed that. Anyway, let's meet again tomorrow evening at the Adventurers Guild.
I saw you flinch out of the corner of my eye. Don't ever try.
I could feel it. She like shook her head. That's because she's a little fat fuck.
I love you though. Actually, no, you didn't give me cuddles last night. Fuck you.
Oh my gosh. Someone posted the part where Dia tells Paimon to shut it.
The damned will sooner die again than lay a hand.
Oh, absolutely. We're walking into spoiler alert territory, but absolutely. I've never been more happy in my life than to hear a character basically tell Paimon to shut the fuck up. It's
They say
great.
it so many times, it's amazing.
Ah, it's a good day.
Like, Ahaitam asks if Paimon ever thinks before she speaks.
She doesn't.
And then,
I mean, neither does.
Sinos just says, like, stop yelling.
You know it's bad. You know it's bad when I say something off stream. Hippity hoppity, I am here. What the fuck? Where did I end up? Hello? Also, they added names to the disc.
Catherine, we're here! Oh, you are the other Catherine, right? That's right. I suppose I'm the other Catherine in your mind. Shh! We're on a secret mission tonight, so we need to protect Catherine's identity. Yep, Paimon's right. We cannot fully rule out the chance that the meetup tonight is just a trap. If something were to happen, my existence may be the only trump card we'll be able to play. After all,
Sorry.
the academia should still be unable to confirm the existence of my consciousness in the outside world. Yep, exactly. Just
Hallelujah,
what Paimon was
fucking-
thinking. Anyway, enough about that. Let's just make sure to be on our guard.
I thought you were about to be on your best behavior.
Off? What do you feel is up? It's the middle of the night. Of course. No, I think she's right. It really is a lot quieter than usual. If you look around, there seems to be fewer people on the streets.
Son of a bitch.
I'm not sure if this is the case for the entire city,
I
though.
hope you both die.
Huh.
Probably
Maybe
the end part of
it's
it,
just
'cause
a
fucking-
coincidence. Maybe Sataria figured out a way to not only distract the guards, but also to get everyone to go to sleep early, just so we can exchange the documents in peace. I also can't quite figure out why things feel a little off. But now that we're here, let's go ahead and meet her as we planned. Well, regardless, as long as you're here with us, Paimon feels a little safer.
LA is entitled for financial compensation, and I will forever die on this fucking hill. You son of a bitch. Priority quest? Motherfucker! Oh my god, I gotta walk there? I gotta walk there?
Huh.
Oh.
There really aren't many people out right now. Let's hope it'll be this quiet in front of the academia, and that Sataria managed to distract all the guards.
Oh, wait, there's people. Oh no, those are the kids that are always there. This is fine. Hey, yo, the fuck?
What are all these people doing here at this hour of the night?
Ah, the triumphant hero returns at last.
Yes.
And to a rather spectacular welcome, even if I do say
He
so
wears a
myself.
collar.
You're the outcast, expelled from the academia.
Indeed I am. Although these days they tend to call me the Doctor.
Omega? They did not just call him Omega, though.
If you're looking for your researcher friend, she has already been taken into confinement. With some basic caution, she could have discovered
He's
the
fine.
listening device on her person. Clearly, she
Shit,
lacks
I'm
the
mad they gave
degree
him an
of
NPC
rigor
model, but he's
expected
still
of a
fine as
true
shit.
scholar.
Apparently they did it. I just saw that there was no way they did that.
The
Damn, they
people
should have given him a
Sumeru
shot for
City.
Gunland then.
They made him have a chubby face. I don't know.
What have you done to them?
Because like the NPC.
I simply made some minor adjustments to their Akasha terminals. Now they can deposit information directly into the subconscious. As you can see, all these lovely people now believe this traveler is a hero who has just
Love
saved
that.
the world. My experiment is a success. And now it seems they can no longer hold back their sheer adoration.
There's someone who might
What
kill
should we
me
do?
in the coming...
These are all just regular people. Leave now. You need to get out of here.
Fuck yeah.
What? That guy's a Fatui Harbinger. We
He's also
can't
number
just
2
leave
when
him
we all
here.
thought he was number fucking
Nor
4.
can I abandon the people of Sumeru.
Go to sleep. Oh, I meant that as a joke. I didn't know they were going to sleep. Everybody go to sleep.
Don't worry. We'll meet again outside of the city.
I see. You appear to have overridden their mental faculties with your own
In fact,
consciousness.
this man got a collar.
To possess such a
He's wearing a
powerful
harness.
mind, you must be the god of wisdom.
Now, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you do that to the blue gumball son of a bitch? I'm calling him that now. Do I have to sprint now? Oh, nope, we already gone. Perfect.
This should be far enough. Paimon needs to catch her breath first. Is the Hida going to be okay? We only made it out because of her. Paimon wasn't counting on running into a new Harbinger here, let alone such a high-ranking one. That guy was number 2.
We all thought he
So
was lower.
scary. He called himself the Doctor. Remember, Tainari told us about him. Sataria did say that someone who once got expelled from the academia came back
Yeah.
recently. And that even the sages are wary of
really
him.
got hit with the
Yep.
the end of like the.
Sounds like she
the
must have been
hot
talking
train.
about the Doctor.
Honestly, man got hit with like everything.
He did. I've never been happier.
Oh yeah, amen. The day we have to find him is the day I cry. Also to everyone who's saying, motherfucker
Yeah.
does not have
Now that the
a
Doctor's in the
vision.
picture, we're no longer
Him and
just
Patsolon
dealing
don't
with the
have vision.
academia.
I don't know why
We're in
everyone thinks he
cahoots
does.
with the
I
Fatui.
think right now my
But
biggest gripe with
what are the Fatui after this time? Another Gnosis?
Okay, that's with any fandom.
That is, I've never had that problem other than the Genshin fandom.
Yeah.
Why
Things
is
would
that,
be a lot
like,
easier with
You know, it
Nahira's
happens. It
help.
happens a lot in the Marvel fandom.
Nahira said we'll meet again outside of the city. But we can't just keep waiting
it's
around,
toned down
right?
to a sense, but you saw people being like, well, why do you like him? He's like a manipulator, and it's like,
It's like because I like the character.
yeah, it's like, dude, No.
You mean?
Dream SMP people would dream.
Really?
Listen, I loved the Dream SMP dream.
Right.
Why? Because he's a manipulative
Wasn't he
little
invited by
shit.
the sages to
And
work on some
listen,
project
I do
when
not
we were
agree with what
staying
he's
with him
doing.
in
I
the
do not
Infinite
support him.
Forest?
But man, I
It
love
has to
seeing
be the
villain
same
characters just
project.
be like so
Even though he turned it down
so
at the time,
evil
he
that it brings
might
a
still
smile to
know
my face just seeing
something.
them do evil shit.
There's
It's
no
like,
time to
can't
lose.
I like a
Let's go to
character and not
Gandharvaville.
also condone what they're doing?
Yes, exactly. It's like, listen, I like the design, I like the fan art, especially the fan art, and it's called, but I do not support what the fuck they do. Hey, yo, can we actually, like, why?
That happened to me. I was so upset. Don't worry, you only have to do like a little bit, and then you're good. Yeah, I was like, what the heck is this bull crap? I don't know why they make it so you can't set certain quests to like a priority. But yeah, just it's Tainari's or you know, Tainari.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's a
Cool.
story quest.
Perfect.
Literally just gotta go up to him and talk, and then you're fine.
Perfect.
Oh, God, pain.
I was like, it's a story quest, so I'm fine with that. Also, ignore why Kokomi is here. I needed a healer. Dude, the desert's kicked my ass already. Oh, I flat butt. Speaking literally and figuratively to the game and to the cat.
Oh my gosh, he doesn't know what shut up means.
My boy. Yo.
This is where you've been, Tainari? That's...
No, the cute little machines.
Keep your voice
No, that's a
down.
child.
Tainari, everything's spinning. Am I going to die?
Yeah, like
Tell Mom that I should have listened to her.
Oh,
And
cool. I can
tell
shine
Suna
child.
that I'm
makes
sorry
perfect
for
sense.
breaking her toy. I didn't tell her because I was scared that she wouldn't play with me anymore. Tainari, I heard that people turn into birds after they die.
It's before,
Is
but
that
it's still,
true?
It's still bad.
I feel like I'm getting lighter.
It's called my settings.
What
like that, so.
happened? Tainari,
There's no echo,
is
thank
he...
God. I wish it was just a quick little turning things off and on again.
Okay, enough
Hi,
nonsense.
Elliot.
You just have a small
I was so
fever.
confused why you said that
Take
for a
your
second.
medication and rest. You'll be bouncing off the
Nah,
walls in no time.
My friend
Really?
knows. My friend
Then
knows Alejandro from a different
Can
game.
you
And
keep
so
the
when she
thing
played
about
it,
the
she
toy a
sent me a
secret
video,
for
and she was
now?
like, oh, hi Sam.
No
first
can
introduced
do.
Me, and I went,
You're a big kid now. Once you've recovered, go and apologize. Keeping secrets
I
to
was like,
yourself
you
won't
just
solve
made my
anything.
brain stop working.
Oh.
I forgot he voiced Sam in that
Hey,
godforsaken
let
game.
me ask you
I
something.
hope that more
I
fun
recall that
voice
you're usually
actors
pretty
start
healthy.
voice acting in this game,
How
so
did
I
you
can
get this
actually
sick all of a
recognize
sudden?
voice actors.
I don't know either.
What do you do?
Mom's been telling me not to play in the forest. I just wanted to look inside.
Yeah.
It's different from before. I got lost and went around in a huge circle.
Voice actor, like for the main character, changed.
After I
because
got
apparently,
out,
like,
I
the original voice actor was a
started
voice
feeling
and they
dizzy.
switched him to Zach.
Could it be?
Only Mahoyaverse could do that. To be fair, I think they'd be switching out everyone constantly, but like...
So that's how this whole mess happened. Anyway, go rest. No running around until I say so, got it? Traveler, Paimon, let's step out for now.
15 minutes, can you wait?
Ow.
What the heck? Why did you just do that?
Mr. Forest Watcher, how
I
is
get
my son?
Tics, like, I get anxiety tics, and so when I get, like, shivers, they activate, and
I gave him some antipyretics.
that's actually
Let him rest
it's
here
called
for
a
a
ring
while.
met callus.
I told him that he would feel better after some medicine and rest, but I only said that to comfort him.
Cool.
His symptoms resemble a fever, but something else is causing them. They seem more akin to a disruption in his psyche. Antipyretics won't be of much
I'll
use.
take that as a yes.
What do we
But
do?
also, ignore me, I'm gonna...
Mr. Forest Watcher, you have
Actually,
to
no, wait.
help him.
Now my ice cream is for
If
later.
memory
Oh my God.
serves, a
Damn,
plant
he
called
actually
the
delivered you your
Sunti grass
Frosty?
can help soothe
They
the
love you.
mind.
They got me my spoon.
A small number grow
Yeah,
in
they love
arid
you.
deserts. They usually look like shriveled weeds, but can be revitalized with a splash of water.
Got the pizza.
They're expensive and unable to grow in the Avidya Forest's
Again.
climate, so I don't have any on hand. I'll ask the caravans. Go find Kale, have her prepare medicinal tools and a set of traveling gear for me.
All right. Thank you.
Contaminated region, huh? Is that why you two are also here?
Yep. Is it a new withering zone?
Doesn't seem like one. Whether you look at scale, internal conditions, or resultant effects, they're completely different. The only thing they have in common is that they aren't welcome. This nuisance made itself home in the Avidya Forest, so I can't turn a blind eye.
We feel the same way.
All right. Let's contact the caravans first and purchase some Vasanti grass. We can also ask about the contaminated region. There's no time to waste. We have to move quickly. Let's go.
Elazar is a truly troublesome illness.
Back to this. Sorry, we have to rant about something. We have to rant about our school being a piece of shit. Because, you know. We're gonna ignore that. We're going to ignore that. Is there any way up there? I don't think. Wait. I have to walk all the way back. I'll just go by. I'll go to Kali's place. Kali's place. Oh no! She took the fire back in. You bitch.
The child is dead.
Oh, good riddance. Hope you know I took that in a completely different context. I was like, oh good, your son's dead?
Monster!
Okay, my boy literally- I almost fell off again. My boy literally fucking died!
I will not survive if he dies. Oh my gosh, the new cake. The new birthday cake.
Is it Dendro themed?
No.
Oh.
What doesn't make sense?
Hold it right there. A blonde-haired traveler and a floating fairy. We've got you, all right.
You want to see it?
Take a look
Is there-
around.
Does it have a fox?
You've fallen right into our trap.
Let me see it then.
Are you mercenaries from the Corps of 30? Did you come here to arrest
Wait,
us?
yes I did.
Core of 30? We're nothing like
There's a
those
fox and
government
birds.
lapdogs
Okay, yeah, I saw
who
this.
don't even get scraps for their work. We are an elite brigade that commands the highest commission rate in all of Sumeru.
Damn, you really want to do this?
We're here on the orders of a client known only as the Outcast.
The outcast? An outcast
Wow, damn, you
from
really
the
gotta be
academia?
emo for that. Sounds like the doctor. Yeah. Wow, Del Toro really being on his emo mode of calling himself an outcast. Motherfucker, you strangled the bitch! Also, I will not hesitate to call a villain out for their stories. Also, apparently people are starting to feel sorry for Jeffrey Dahmer, and every time I say that, I want to cry.
That's real?
Yes.
All I've
It's-
seen is people making fun of the cops.
Okay, well they were all so stupid because the Netflix documentary that came out. Also, do not watch it.
Why? Is it bad?
No, it is offensive to the victims.
Oh.
Like their families are still alive.
But why wouldn't the
Yeah, no,
doctor
people are starting to
just
feel
send
sorry
the
for him. I'm just
Petunia
like-
for us?
Why?
Still wasting time on idle chit-chat. We'll shut you up soon enough.
Oh, try me, bitch.
You're up, traveler.
Shut the fuck. I'm always up, you cunt. Hey, how about you help me once in my life?
Can't see?
Right now, right here.
Fuck
Hold the line.
That's close enough.
One with the farce.
Right now, right here. Emerge. Right here.
Can't see.
Useless.
He's like, yay, I want food.
It isn't over yet. Here comes
Oh my god! Bro, let me live!
Rest and rebuild.
Bro, let me breathe!
You want this?
That was pretty rough. Is that what elite mercenaries are like? Yeah. Looks like we'll have to keep our guards up. But this doctor guy seems like a pretty tough opponent. He knew exactly where to set up an ambush. Did he predict that we would try to find Tainari?
It does?
Going up against smart people is tough. Anyway, let's keep going.
I mean, the light doesn't turn on, but I don't think that means it's... My Tanari. My son! My boy! The Fluff King. Literally, his fluff hurts. Like, it's tooth rotting. I see a little silhouette of a Calais.
Oh, it's the Traveler Calais. It's nice. To be honest, I'm not doing too well. My Elazar has been progressing at a faster rate lately.
Yeah, I know the reason why.
I'm finding it harder to complete more intricate tasks. As a result, Master Tainari is taking me off the patrol schedule. He will only allow me to stay here and coordinate other people's tasks. Oh, Calais. Speaking of Tainari, did he go up? Oh,
You notice that
Master
since
Tainari?
Valkyrie is here,
You just
her-
left the Avidia
her
Forest a
disease
little
is
while
moving
ago.
faster.
He was headed to Party's DI.
That has something to do with
He left?
later. I don't think
What?
that has to do directly.
Isn't Tainari always saying that he never wants to leave the Avidia
I
Forest?
just like the idea that
He even
it
turned
knows-
down the Sage's invitation. I thought it was weird too. Master Tainari always prioritizes his work as a forest
Ah,
watcher
son of a
above
bitch,
everything.
time to go save my kid.
No, I only found out that he left through a
That was
message he
like
left
my first thought. I
behind.
was like, no!
He also made sure to delegate all
Time to
his
go
tasks
save
using a
the
schedule.
fucking fox.
To leave in such a hurry?
Time to go save
I guess
one
he
of
had
my-
something urgent to
time to
take
go
care of.
save the sim.
Master Tainari originally studied in the Amorta Darshan of the Academia, and Partis DI is something like the Amorta's research base. Many rare shrubs and grasses have been planted there for research. I know that before he
Yo.
became a forest watcher, Master Tainari once spent a long time conducting research at Partis DI. A research base, huh? Gotta wonder what kind of research Tainari just
Motherfucker
decided
would
to work
spite
on all
the
of a
Rain
sudden.
Shogun just for fun.
Oh, we
You
don't
cannot
have a
tell me
lot of time,
otherwise.
so let's go look for him at Partis DI.
Right now, right? Because you're on the stream.
You're fine.
You sure?
Yeah. As long... Then yeah, you're fine.
Because we're just gonna do stuff in front of
Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm used to living with Elazar by now. If you run into
Yeah, you're
Master
fine.
Tainari,
You
please
guys got a
send him
problem
my
with that shit?
regards.
Take it up with me. Because I
Got
care
it.
more about my
Will do.
roommates than
See
you
you later,
guys.
Calais.
I live with you for the next 3 years. They are gonna leave me soon. Literally, my kid already left the Discord. Yeah, no, I was like, I like sent out the announcement. It was like only 44, and I was like, this used to be higher. And then I looked, I'm like, oh, yep. Hey! Oh, this is where she gets shanked.
Look who it is! Thank goodness you're okay. We were so worried about you.
Hell yeah.
Hey, this was supposed to be a touching reunion, but you're ruining the moment.
I'm asking a serious question!
Actually, it's very smart of the Traveler to be wary of me right now. After all, the Doctor has shown that his technology can apparently even control human minds. Plus, it's not like you could have known what happened after we split up, and I was facing the doctor by myself. Even a pool of stagnant water after a torrential storm can occasionally pass as a patch of sky.
Really?
My mom feels like only the real Nahida could come up with such an obscure analogy. Huh? But I wasn't trying to win your well, we understand that point now. Please, Nahida, tell us more about what happened. Are those poor people? When you left, I was still in the middle of restoring everyone's minds. Thankfully, when the doctor mentioned depositing information into the subconscious, he didn't mean engraving information into their minds. Instead, he did something closer to creating hallucinations. That was still within my power to fix. Luckily, I managed to finish my restorations and mind jump away from him just as he was about to capture me.
That's not.
What a relief. The doctor sure pulled out some hidden cards, but good thing we had Nahida with us.
He's pulling out all of his cards.
I wouldn't be relieved just yet.
Probably not gonna happen.
I gave away my true identity when I restored everyone's minds, which means we've lost another one of our trump cards.
One weekly boss.
Also, the doctor is already an expert at modifying Akasha terminals. Maybe it's only a matter of time until he captures my consciousness inside the Akasha. Would that mean you'd no longer be able to jump between minds? Then how do we stop him? He's still at the academia, so it's possible he already started messing with the Akasha.
Because it's been confirmed that it's Scaramouche.
Yeah.
And I'm now just like putting it in the air. It's possible it might be Dazar.
Really?
It's a possibility.
That'd be early.
Yeah, it would be early as shit, but it's like it's a possibility.
Feels like he's toying with us. What a nasty piece of work. Plus,
I just
the
want to see how
doctor's combat ability alone is apparently enough to make him worthy of being number 2 of the Fatui.
Well, it's just...
We shouldn't give up hope just yet.
You gotta
Let's try
pick
to
a child.
find another way to attack this
Well, it's
problem.
like what I was thinking.
Actually, Nahida, how did you know we were trying to get to Party's Thei? Have you been waiting for us? Yes, I have. I can see the traveler's elemental energy, so I deduced your destination by looking at the direction you were
Oh, cool,
moving.
it's raining.
You
As
didn't
the
come here for
atmosphere.
sightseeing, right? Did you find any leads? We're looking for a scholar we know. His name is Tainari, and the sages once tried to reach
I'm
out to
looking for
him.
a fox boy,
Why
very
don't you
large
come inside
ear,
with us
green
and see what we can
aesthetic,
find?
gold on the back, short
Okay.
hair, green on the front.
Let's
really
just hope
fluffy
we
ass
won't get him
green
into
tail.
trouble.
Is a kind of sarcastic little shit who is not afraid to get arrested. You know that boy? If you have my son, you are not, oh, why'd I call him my son? He's not my son. Because I simp for him too much. Where the fuck's my boy? Where's my boy?
Traveler? It is you!
Hi.
Ah, the voice! It's Hypatia!
The echo.
What a pleasant surprise! It's so nice to see the two of you again.
Who's this?
Who the fuck is this?
She's a scholar we met in the Avidia Forest. When we last saw each other, she was still training in the... what's it called?
Not her skill is.
Satyavada life?
Not her E.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
That's right, we're old
I was
friends.
like, damn.
You've come
They
at
said,
just
"What's
the
that
right
trauma to
time.
her?"
Ever since I've come here, hardly anyone
Also,
has even
her E
talked to
looks
me.
Nice, 'cause I think
Hypatia,
it's
you're
based
way
on,
too
like, how
excited
she
about
says,
this.
So it's gonna be really
Actually,
nice
for
just
you
have
to leave the
constant.
Avidia Forest means... you're not in training anymore? Wait, no. Did you already finish your training and reach Pariporna life?
What do you think? My consciousness has already managed to make contact with the divine.
What?
You did it! Congratulations!
You right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just like paying attention with yours while I reopen tabs. No, that was not the reason for the echo. Because they were closed before then.
It's
Again,
so exhilarating to share
can we
this
speed this up?
sublime
I still
joy
got a
with
fox
others
to
at
look
long
for.
last.
when my consciousness made contact with the gods. Ah, what a supreme and unparalleled experience that
I hate
was!
that.
That sounds incredible!
Oh, all right. Actually, please wait. I haven't forgotten my promise
I
to
don't
you.
like how that went up and basically
Remember?
she was having an orgasm.
I promised to help you understand what you saw from Irminsul once I gained deeper insights. My current self has not only gained true insight,
What?
but I can even help you establish a direct connection to the consciousness
Yeah,
of the
the fuck?
divine.
Excuse me? This feels weird. This feels suspicious.
You can do that? I've never heard of anything like that, but if you want to give it a try, I'll do my best to protect your consciousness during the process.
Hold on. I brought some spirit borneal with me. This is still a crucial part of the ceremony.
We're using that incense again?
All right now. Hold my hand. I'll help you establish a pathway to connect your consciousness.
Okay.
Ready?
Oh, there goes gravity.
It took 3 betrayals for me to finally understand. The world is just an elaborate tapestry of lies.
This quote hits different.
My fury will never be quelled.
I see a little silhouette of a man's camel.
The first to betray me was a god. My creator. My mother.
I know it's not true. It's not true, my boy.
Valuing strength above all. She saw no worth in me and I was discarded. The second was a human.
I see the red streak in the hair.
My
You can't
family.
fool me. My friend.
My friend.
This is where I believe
Consumed
this
by
bitch is
fear.
gonna
He saw me as an abomination.
My ear!
I'm sorry. I
The
can't
third
this
was one
motherfucker now.
exactly like me.
Again, he.
A hope for the future.
Yes, he beat out Shao.
A
I've
fledgling
been
barely
kidding
out of the
before I
nest.
fucking played the game because I looked up a story. Not the child.
Powerless
child.
before his mortality. He
Not the
broke his
deer.
promise to me.
The reflection went out of his
Humans. They can't be trusted. And the gods fill me with pure loathing. So I said good riddance. I denounce the world and laugh in its face.
Because again, he's surrounded by Nico.
My chest will never again be defiled by
Familiar.
worldly
Raven-
filth.
Raven's
I will scrub away every last trace of human emotion.
Yeah, because I don't think he understands like.
Then it will be
everything.
empty, a blank slate,
Yeah.
and ready to receive a supreme gnosis,
Also, he's like a
brimming
virgin.
with pure
He's focused on
divinity.
emotion, he's not focused on like.
Anytime not wanting to scrub his emotions clean, I'm like, no, baby boy, stop it!
It's a
There is no need to fear. The pain will be brief. Your era is coming to an end.
I did. I noticed it first because my friend was like, "There's this hat."
I didn't.
I see a little silhouette of a man, Scaramouche, Scaramouche.
What was that?
The reason.
Spaghetti.
Did we actually just see the Balladier's memories? Everything matches what we know about him. But how is he connected
Is
to
it
the
about
divine
that
consciousness
Anakin
that Hypatia was
that
talking
bad?
about?
I don't think so. Just means you love
You saw it, right? You felt it, right? Ah, such a majestic god! Such a noble will! Such sublime emotion!
I do not need to be called out.
Alas, shame. If only... If only that which beats within my chest
also
wasn't a
the art.
filthy mortal heart.
Also, I
Oh,
love how they
great
give him
and
and Raven
merciful
so many
God,
different, like, similarities.
please grant me forgiveness and
'Cause you have, like,
salvation.
you have like the eye.
Do you understand
glowing
now?
during the art. You have the
I'm
white
afraid
strip,
this
like,
is
different
no
colors on the
periportal
back.
life, but
I know it's
rather...
like he's a puppet of the Raiden Shogun, but still.
Ah! You! Why are you so mean to me? Why is everyone hiding from me?
You see, we have a
I
madman who's
found
putting...
divine wisdom. Shouldn't I receive praise and honor? Haven't I uncovered that light in the darkness?
Apasia?
That's how I always thought everything should be. Wait. Have I already lost my mind?
But I do believe the second person who
Wait,
betrayed him is
something
like
isn't
slightly
right.
something of Kazuha's. Does he have the red streak in the hair?
I think it was Kazuma's, like,
Oh, this cutscene I love.
yeah.
The way her skirt moves is so pretty. Oh, yeah, damn well. Still working with the dull sword, is she? Oh yeah, I know she is. She could kill them if she wanted to. I actually don't think they stab her in this. Yeah, I don't think they stab her. I think they stick her. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. I was like, wait, none of the angles match up. I'm gonna reiterate on a statement I made before. If Raiden saw this shit, she's losing her mind. She's killing bitches. The fact that there's a literal chain wrapped around it. Hi. Actually, no, we're fighting him. Yeah, no, it's connected to him. You can see it now.
I thought you would have realized that during that cutscene, because it shows all of the stuff plugged into him there.
You did. You can't see it as well. And also, it's like it's really fast. I mentioned that you can. I mentioned if he is plugged into it. Tanari, my boy. Also, the fact that Tanari is even like, even the fact that Tanari is like, "Hey, yo, can you shut the fuck up? You're hurting my ears."
Are you okay, Nahida? Wait, no. Something feels different. You're back!
Hi.
Oh, the Traveler's back?
Nahida was controlling your body for a while. It seemed like she jumped over to you as an emergency measure right before the Catherine puppet was destroyed. After that, Tainari heard the commotion and came over.
Damn, how am I gonna do
He
my
helped us
signature
defeat the
missions now?
mercenaries and then he ran with us all the way here. What? You swapped places?
Tanari in the
You
background.
mean your consciousness also went into Nahida's body? Wait, then where is Nahida's consciousness? Where is she now?
Put two and two together.
I never imagined that an individual's consciousness could be transferred around like this. Had I not seen it with my own eyes, I would have never believed it. I don't think this can be achieved with current human technology. Also, while we were running, the consciousness in your body told me to pass on a message. She said, "The doctor has found a way to trap my consciousness, so I can't journey with you anymore. But even in a moonless night, a shower of starlight can still drown out illusions and lies."
Oh no! Nahida's trapped in the sanctuary of Surasthana for good this time.
Silly mode
Was that
activated.
message all she left for us? It's pretty vague.
There's my bird.
Oh.
Oh, that makes sense. Since the doctor captured her, she won't be able to say anything without him knowing. She's being extra careful. Even in a moonless night, a shower of starlight can still drown out illusions and lies. Huh. Paimon knows the moon illusions and lies are from that alchemical divination at the Sub-Zero's festival. Didn't Nahida use a starlight analogy before? It had something to do with Sataria. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Starlight refers to the people of the desert.
Do you think Nahida was telling us to go find help in the desert?
I do just.
But she isn't with us anymore. Think we'll be okay?
Paimon, you said
I don't know
Sanctuary of
why.
Surasthana.
Since someone pointed out, it's
Does
like
this
the thing
mean that
Scaramouche,
this
my brain just like,
Nahida you're talking about, the consciousness who was occupying the Traveler's body, is The Dendro Archon?
God damn it.
Your guess is correct, but the situation's a bit complicated, so it's really hard for us to explain right now.
That's all right. A scholar's curiosity doesn't need to be appeased right away. As for the complicated nature of the situation, safe to say I have witnessed that for myself. I've spent some time with you, and it looks like the Dendro Archon's also on your side, so I trust you.
I have all the articles
Thank you,
on my side.
Tainari.
What the fuck do you
Oh,
mean?
actually, we came here to ask you a question. What do you know about the project that the sages have been working on?
Yeah, the Arcana code.
that.
Continues in 3 point.
While I was indeed invited to join that project, the sages were always
You didn't get to
secretive
ask
about
all your
its
questions
scope
at the
and
end.
goals,
That's how you know this shit's
so I
finished.
eventually declined. All I
Also, I
know
got a
is
bitch
that
slap
that
scared me really
project has
fast.
something to do with the restoration of
You're telling me
Irminsul.
I gotta wait for 3.3 for this man to come out?
I know.
Huh?
I want him
Did
now!
you see something when you were in Nahita's body? What?
Do you have any evidence?
Damn. Sorry, Scara. Sorry, Scara.
Hmm.
I'm really about
So
to come kick
that's
your
what
shit in.
happened. That explains why Hypatia's symptoms were different from those of the
Imagine
other
they save
scholars
the
who
fight for
went
3.3
mad.
when he comes out, so when you
It's
fight him,
because
he
she
kinda-
made
he gets, like, a
contact
new
with
look
the
and all that.
consciousness of a new god
That'd be
who was
cool. Are
still
they
in
gonna
the
do it?
process
No.
of being born.
I highly
Tainari,
doubt the Hoyoverse.
Did you leave the Avidia Forest because of Hypatia?
I did. I noticed Hypatia's mental anomalies, but since her symptoms were rather atypical, I secretly took her to Pardes Dii and began searching for a way to return her to her normal self.
Yeah, looks like Yoimi is
If
coming
I didn't
back.
take action, Hypatia would have already been taken by the Matra to the desert, doomed to a life of exile at Aru village.
So yeah,
Now
so the
that you
next-
mention
the next
it,
speculation
I
is-
knew the Academia has never thought particularly highly of Lesser Lord Kusanali, but I still didn't expect them to do something as
There's an idea.
arrogant as creating a new god.
Yoimi, plus-
Looks like I
plus
made the right
Layla,
decision
and
by
then
not accepting
Yoimi.
their invitation.
But again, it looks like these are like the most like not correct leaks in a while.
The Doctor and the Balladeer. We have two Fatui Harbingers in Sumeru.
Yeah, because you're.
Sounds like we're in for a bad time. From your description,
Oh yeah, no.
I don't think they've completed their project. There may still be room for us to intervene. But then, what is the connection between creating a new god
I just said
and
that.
restoring Irminsul?
That's fine.
Yeah. It feels like we're still nowhere close to figuring out the sage's goals.
I guess wants to get constellations for child. So they're like banking on it.
Right. We've been
I'll stay here for now. I still want to try a few more things to help Hypatia.
Imagine how
If you're
Hatham
planning
and
to
Simon
go
are
into the
really
desert,
Imagine how
start
Hatham
by
is
heading
with
for
the
Caravan
Simon.
Rabat. That'll be your fastest route.
I mean, that's
Come
the
find me
speculating.
here if there's anything else I can do to help. May the spirit of wisdom go with you.
Thanks, Tainari. Hopefully Hypatia will feel better soon. We're off then.
So, come on, please, let me live my 50-50. Please.
This is why my Hoyoverse cannot hire me. I thrive on leaks.
I'm so scared, VC.
My boy deserves the world at this point. Cause I see a little silhouette up on the mountain, scaramouche, scaramouche. I had something stuck in my head now. Also, do not pay attention to my
We
desert
finally
map. I'm
made
ahead
it
of
to
a story
Caravan
quest, so I have
Rebat.
some
It's pretty lively
teleports
here.
that aren't shown.
So, just past this wall is the desert, huh? Oh, wow. Paimon remembers hearing people call this the Wall of Samiel. It's made to block sandstorms from the outside. Oh, if it's this tall,
I know your ass
it's
is
gotta be the
picture now.
divine work of Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, right?
I just realized
Mm-hmm.
You're about to know what I screamed.
Oh,
Enough
hi.
gawking. Come on, follow me.
Yes!
Huh?
Yes!
Over here.
Hi.
Oh my god.
Fuck!
Hey, they went that way! Let's hurry up and
I
follow him.
can't fall for a white man.
Thank you.
Again. Again, Xiao's skill makes things 50 times more better. But also, I cannot fall for a white man. I've already too fallen in with these fucking characters. Uh-oh.
What the? Where did she go? How did we lose them? They were just here a second ago.
I don't know.
We're too cool for school.
More Aramite mercenaries? Who are they working for this time? Anyway, Traveler, it seems
So
like we
welcome
were
back to
being
being hunted down
followed
by an entire
again.
country.
You were too careless. You should have noticed those hopeless amateurs trailing you a long time ago.
Shut up! I'm gonna shut the fuck up.
I love him.
There's no need to thank me. I've never cared to keep track of personal favors. All I did was correct a mistake I happened to come across. It's a habit I developed at the academia.
Fuck.
You really gave Paimon a scare, Alhaitham. We never thought we'd run into you here. Last time we met at Port
Yeah,
Ormos,
he's a white
didn't
man,
you
so I
say you
cannot
were
fall
going
for him, but
back
at
to
the
the
same time, fuck's
academia?
attractive.
Wait, don't tell Paimon that you're
That's-
here to take
that's
us
okay
back on their
saying.
orders.
Oh, so you've
That's
already
okay saying,
landed
because, like,
yourselves
I'm
on
a
the
lesbian,
academia's
kind of
hit
falling for a
list.
white man, but also he's kind of attractive.
I can't say that I
Which,
didn't
again, everyone's
expect
like,
it.
"How can you find men attractive?" He's like,
However, had I
can
wished to
find
turn
men
you over to the
attractive, but have
academia,
no interest
don't you think you'd already be the
in pursuing
Eremites'
them.
honored guests by now?
Oh, right. You do
Well,
have
where's
a
my
point.
girl Dia?
I have no interest in running errands for that project. As a scholar, I've always belonged to the camp that promotes researcher autonomy. And these days, you're more fascinating than anything the sages can offer. Not quite. To tell you the truth, I'm still investigating the Divine Knowledge Capsule. Unfortunately, I've run into some difficulties. Everyone says the capsule originated in the desert and was eventually moved to Port Ormos. If I am to get to the bottom of this, I must understand how the capsule first came to be. Which brings me back to you,
Hi.
and why you're so interesting. The leader of Ain al-Ahmar used the Divine Knowledge Capsule right in front of you, and upon seeing him, your expression became perplexed, and you were lost in thought for quite some time. To have that kind of reaction, I think you must have realized something. Are you interested at all in sharing what you've been hiding from me?
No.
Alhaitham, you really have a ridiculous eye for detail.
So that's your answer. Well, I do work for the
there water?
academia after all. So considering that, it is indeed wise to keep your cards close to your
Yes.
chest. But that does
love
prove
the
you
one.
do have
Thank
some
you.
undisclosed information about the Divine Knowledge Capsule. Am I right?
Aren't you the one who stole
No
the bitch?
matter. Rather than simply learning the answers from you,
I can
I'd still
be-
prefer to investigate on my own.
I fucking know it.
Speaking of, you
They
two are
blatantly
also
showed us
headed
man
to the
stealing
desert?
it. They showed his ass.
That's
Traveler
right.
doesn't
We have
know
the same
so
plan
much.
as you. But we don't
That
really
is
have
also
any
kinda true.
concrete goals at the moment.
It was so obvious.
Then
that
I'd
you took
suggest
it.
starting with
Come on.
Aru Village.
It's always better to travel with someone you know. Let's go.
Oh, Kendaki is in this. I'm gonna be a fucking simp. Beauty of doing the desert shit later. Yeah, ignore,
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
ignore these waypoints. You have to do a quest to get them. And also ignore why this looks different. Because again, you have a story quest you have to do. Also, fuck this boy. Fuck this robot. Why is there more to it? Why is there... There's another hand. I felt like I'm singing it.
Before us lies Aru Village, the safe haven of the desert folk.
Whoa. This landscape is really something else.
Oh,
What a cool place. Let's go check it out.
Is this where my boy comes in? Yes! Yes! Give me Sino kicking ass, please.
Isn't it crazy how many animated cutscenes there are?
There's so many art ones too that I love. There he is.
Yes!
Yes. My boy, I lost. Hell yeah!
That's not fair.
I have been blessed. I know it is. Kick his ass.
Sino.
Please tell me I don't have to fight him.
Unless my memory fails me, we have barely spoken 2 words to each other before now at the Academia. Would you care to enlighten me as to when and how I invited the General Mahamatra's wrath?
Oh, Hatham. Do not think you can escape my judgment just because you managed to escape my attack.
Listen, I've been a simp for this man's voice
Judgment?
since fucking forever.
So that's how you'd characterize your actions here, is it? Or would elimination perhaps be a more accurate description?
Had I used my full strength, not even this traveler would have been able to stop me. Though styled like an assassination, I sought only to ensure that my target would be unable to flee or resist. Standard practice for the mantra,
If I
as
roast
well
the
you
shit
know.
out of Scaramouche, I gotta
Seems
roast
to
the
me
shit out of
more
someone
like
else.
your own personal touch.
I cannot believe how
Who is that,
not like
Al-Haytham?
that man for read.
Did you call him General
I'm just
Mahamatra?
laughing at the fact that I took one look at
Yes.
Scaramouche and said,
General Mahamatra
I'm gonna
Sino,
bully this.
head of all the Matra at the Academia. He's a formidable hunter, and the ultimate nightmare for any who have committed academic crimes.
You seem to have placed a lot of trust in Al-Haytham,
I don't trust
to
this
the
man
point
as
of
far as I
blocking
can
an
throw
attack
him.
for him.
Meanwhile, you can throw
If
me
I
anywhere.
were you, I'd never choose to side with him. I wouldn't believe a single word that comes out of his mouth. I've been pursuing this scribe for a long time. I urge you,
Has Al-Haytham done something wrong? Paimon doesn't think he's as bad as you've made him out to be.
I won't waste my breath explaining things. Al-Haytham, I saw it during our fight. Take it out. The divine knowledge capsule you're hiding on your person.
Oh shit.
Unless you want me to retrieve it for myself.
Hey, yo, that's kind of creepy.
Very perceptive of you. Nothing escapes a Matra's senses.
After we're done Final Fantasy, you should do Genshin.
Wait, the divine knowledge capsule?
The story is
Didn't
good.
it fall
I'm
into the
playing
Matra's hands
it,
in
and
Port Ormos?
No wonder you speak with such confidence, Sino. But I must admit, I'm very curious. What does this capsule mean to you?
I'm suggesting.
And why, as General Mahamatra of the Academia, are you all alone in the desert? As far as I'm aware, the other
respect
Matra have
that.
been speculating about your disappearance. Have you been given a mission that's, let's say, morally dubious?
Yeah, I need to.
If I was the real target of your mission, what was stopping you from simply using your authority and resources to judge me within the walls of the Academia?
I respect that.
You suck. Don't enable him.
Yeah, no, you can see the.
I should have known you'd be difficult to deal with.
Lighter.
You two? Ugh. What should we do, Traveler? Paimon feels like we can't trust either of them.
I trust Sino more than I'll hate them. I'm sorry.
Ahem. Well, look at you two.
Wife!
Acting all tough and self-righteous over there.
Wait, Dia?
There should be my brownies. That's not my fault.
Great!
Management
Finally
did kick my
someone
ass
that
in
we
4
can
seconds,
trust!
but that's fine.
You gotta help us out here. Otherwise, these two are gonna start fighting again!
Yeah, sure looks that way. 2 giants from the Academia duking it out once and for all. Not something
God, I
you get
didn't
to
know
see
the
every
pattern
day,
back of his
that's
tip.
for sure.
Pee.
Listen,
I need to
I
pee.
know you academic
Get on
types
Final Fantasy
love
and
to
help your
fill up your
sister.
big brains with self-righteous morality and lord your empty rules and virtues over each other. But how dare you bring your petty disputes into the safe haven of Aru Village? It seems like someone's gonna have to beat some sense into your thick skulls until you finally learn to respect these grounds.
It's because you're a failure. I'm so scared I'm gonna do a bad job. Is it saying you're too young to play Final Fantasy? That's so weird.
Forgot to pause. Oh, thank God. I was about to be like, did you tell Paimon to shut the fuck up?
Not yet, not yet.
Thank God. I want to witness that shit.
That's so weird. What is
Hey,
Final
did
Fantasy
either of you hear a word I just said?
Of course.
Oh, hi, Venti.
Whoa, what's going on? The wind's so strong. Is this a sandstorm? Paimon's gonna get blown away.
If you can figure that out.
Another sandstorm? What's up with these recently?
Hey! All of you, over here, quickly!
My wife.
We have to take cover.
My other wife.
Someone's calling for us. Oh, this wind is too strong. Let's get over
My
there.
other wife.
That sounded like Candace. Come on, you two. Jeez, are all of you academia folks such hard work? Move it!
Spelling, but fuck.
All right, stop yelling.
Fuck you.
He's having computer problems.
Oh, understandable. Computer problems are fun. Fuck OneDrive.
I love how Microsoft Edge like freaks out the moment you try installing Google Chrome.
Yes, welcome to the awkward silence.
Well, this is pretty
Shut the fuck up.
Hey, wanna play sardines with 3 people who wanna tear each other limb from limb? Sure, why not? Sounds fun. The air is so thick and heavy. Paimon can hardly keep floating anymore.
My sincere apologies, everyone. This is the home of our village chief. I will have to ask you to make do with this small room until the sandstorm dies down. Please, let me introduce myself. I am Candace, protector of Aru Village.
Our savior has come at
My
last.
name is Kandake, and I will die
Nice
on
to
this
meet you,
fucking hill.
Candace. The name's Paimon. Thank you so much for helping us.
There's no need to thank me. It's only right to help each other when the weather gets rough.
Wow, she's so gentle and caring, like a nice older sister. Unlike those guys over there.
All right. Now that we're all
Well,
better
this I have
acquainted,
set to a game
we should
setting,
return to the
so
topic
there's
at
something
hand.
turned off. This I have set
As a
to normal.
guardian charged
Yeah,
with the
she's darker on this
responsibility
than
to
here.
protect my fellow villagers from harm,
Damn.
I was observing your
Damn.
conflict from afar, even before the sandstorm started.
Not us doing the fuck
And now that you have set foot within our village itself, it is all the more my responsibility to make absolutely sure that you pose no threat whatsoever to us. So please, have an honest and sincere conversation with one another, and put your hostile feelings to rest. If anyone dares to start anything again while they are under this roof, I will not hesitate to send them out for some quality time with the creatures of the sandstorm.
I'm in love with her.
Oh, On second thought, Paimon may have misjudged Candace's character.
Powerful woman who can strangle me. Yes, please.
And that goes for you too, Miss Dia.
Oh, shit.
Do I make myself clear?
All right, we got it, Candace.
Is he down bad for her too?
That's what I like to hear. So, which of you will begin?
I was supposed to be a mediator, but I might have gotten a little too involved just now. Anyway, one of those two should probably start talking.
Wait, that was you trying to be a mediator?
I have nothing to hide, so there's no shame in explaining myself. While Al-Haytham wasn't wrong about the other Matra not knowing my whereabouts, it's not because I've been assigned a morally dubious mission. Rather, I've chosen to exile myself.
Damn, welcome to the party.
Exile yourself?
Welcome to the exile party, my friend.
A little while ago, I discovered that there was data missing in the Academia's project planning and development files. What little they did report clearly did not match the project's actual progress. As General Mahamatra, I had the responsibility and authority to request an audit. However, to my surprise, the person responsible for the erroneous data was none other than Grand Sage Azar himself. I tried to investigate the issue myself before submitting a formal audit request, but I soon found that all leads and potential pieces of incriminating evidence were carefully concealed from me. I began to realize that they were cautious of me from the very beginning. Unsurprisingly, the Grand Sage rejected my audit request as soon as the submission reached his desk. He even said to me, "The power of the General Mahamatra is granted by the sages. You have no right to judge us."
So they really are up to no good.
Oh, wow.
I realized then that to the Grand Sage,
Sounds about right.
the Matra are nothing more than tools for the sages to assert and maintain their control over knowledge. The vows that we took, the principles that we strive to uphold, they are meaningless to the academia of today.
Fuck. Damn. So you decided to exile yourself.
I believed it would be wise to flee the academia before the sages had a chance to take action against me. This way, they can no longer see nor predict my actions. I will never give up on this investigation. There's no need for someone else to give me power or authority. Once I find the truth, I will administer judgment by my own name.
Sino seems to have the same goal as us. We're all investigating the sages. Plus, now that he's no longer the General Mahamatra, he somehow feels a lot less scary. Well, Sino, if that's your story, then why did you see Al-Haytham as a target?
When I was investigating the matter in the academia, I overheard a conversation between Al-Haytham and a sage. The sages asked you to investigate a blonde-haired traveler. Do you dispute this, Al-Haytham?
Ah! That's fair.
What?
Like many parts of the project, this assignment was undocumented. Now throw in your suspicious behavior with the Divine Knowledge Capsule, and I think we just...
Yes. I was indeed tasked
I
with
knew I shouldn't trust your
investigating
ass!
Al-Haytham!
He was investigating us from the very beginning!
After all, the promised reward was so
Okay,
great
shut
that hardly
up.
any scholar could have
No wonder why you
refused.
like his bitch ass!
The sage told me, once you've completed this assignment, I can give you a glimpse of divine
You're the one
knowledge.
who's a bitch child and one
The
of you
most
bitch ass!
enticing offer.
No, he's not the same.
Unfortunately, those academics
Gave us
don't know
money.
me at all.
It's not.
Their words contain
Sorry, I'm
one
playing
key piece of
the Archon
information,
quest.
namely that divine knowledge indeed
And it's
exists.
really good, and I just got
That
like
gave me all I needed
suspicions
to know.
confirmed, and now I'm putting...
From my perspective, the sages are
I
far
knew
from
he was
trustworthy.
investigating us.
Think
I knew
about
he was a little bit suspicious.
Isn't it a little strange they're so willing to share divine knowledge with anyone, even as a
He straight up
reward?
just admits that he was sexually
So,
I
I began my own investigation
No, I've been
following
yelling
the
at you!
lead of the divine knowledge capsule.
Ah, there we go, there
In
it
the
is.
end, I realized my wisdom in committing to this rather than collaborating with the sages. Had I been less guarded,
So now
I probably would have ended up like that Einal Achmar mercenary.
gave us
incapable of
money.
remaining
Matt,
sane
he
for
gave us
long
a
enough to
fund.
hold a conversation.
He works for an organization and he's rich and he's slightly
That the
suspicious
sages
that we met
originally
him.
planned to dispose of you, using one of those capsules that drive people insane?
He does not trust them.
So this is he doesn't fucking trust child yet. Here we are.
But that's different because
Shut the fuck up. You just tell him 2.0 and you like him and you know I'm correct. You just don't want to admit it on stream, bitch.
no, because he's trustworthy this time.
I'd already given up on the assignment by then.
You would know if you.
I
knew
only
the
told
story.
the Academia I was waiting in Port
There's a
Ormos for you
character
to
that acts
appear
like
so they wouldn't
Childs
suspect anything.
to a certain degree. And
So
now
it
making
came
fun
as
of
quite a
crazy for, like,
surprise when I
these two
encountered my
characters that act like
erstwhile
each
target
other.
while investigating the Divine Knowledge Capsule.
Criminals do love
Exactly,
to talk
I'm the
about
same way. I got
coincidences.
shot and scared when she both
Even
fucked
though
up,
I
thank
ran
God,
into
we
the
don't talk
Traveler
about
by
that.
chance, I had no intention of
We
providing
don't talk
assistance
about
to
how
the
the Kinless
Academia.
fucking grew.
Also, you should remember, you were the ones who decided to follow me and strike up a conversation
Hey,
after I
you're
left that
hot.
tavern.
I'll give you that.
That's true.
But again, he's a white man. I can't fall for
Caravan
him.
Rebot as well. Maybe he's telling the truth.
I'm willing to apologize if that's worth anything to you.
Why? What did
I
he
took
do?
the Divine
Give me the
Knowledge
playable character
Capsule
and we'll
behind
see.
your back because
We'll
I
see how
judged
this
its
goes.
existence to be a
I've told you
significant
who I sent
risk.
for in this game.
I
use the
felt that it
majority
would
of
be
all the
best for
characters.
no one to interact with it before it had been properly studied. After all, curiosity often proves to be the most dangerous thing in this land.
You should be well aware, Scribe Al-Haytham, that curiosity can also lead you to danger and suspicion.
Yeah, it's
Answer me
because
this.
he's a cryopole arm user.
Did the sages share any information about their project with you?
Have I not made myself clear?
Yeah, that's Mika.
You and I are both distrusted by the Academia.
Honestly, when they said
Do you
cryo, I was
really
like, oh,
think
it's
they
gonna be
would
hot
tell
too.
me
But, like,
anything?
No, it's the opposite.
Fine. Although you haven't completely proven your
He will be
innocence,
just not through this
I
event.
won't regard you as
He's
an
like
enemy,
I think he's
for
like
now.
3.5 character.
As you wish.
He's not gonna be out for a bit.
Yeah, he's a.
Good. I'm glad to see you two clearing up your misunderstandings. And now you, Dia. I believe it's your turn.
She's a sleepy college
Oh,
student. and I
sorry.
love her.
Whatever the boys were talking about must have been so boring that I spaced out.
Dia.
My situation is pretty straightforward. My employer, Dunyarzad
Damn, I
of
was
the
like, maybe
Homayani
he's trying
family,
to be
is
obscene,
friends with the traveler
bestie.
and is currently recovering from her illness at home. I had nothing going on, so I decided to return to our village for a visit. I was actually looking forward to a pretty exciting time getting back together with everyone here. But then I saw these two random guys in the middle of a pointless argument. It ticked me off, and things went downhill from there.
Is that all? Well, I will admit that definitely sounds like your style. In that case, welcome back, Dia.
That's more like it. I missed you all so much, Candace.
Ayo. Ayo, what?
Whoa!
Not my
What was
wannabe,
that
too far out
sound?
of my reach. Goddamn.
No need to worry. Now that you're no longer at each other's throats, please make yourselves at home. I'll take a quick trip outside to clear out some of those creatures in the sandstorm.
Creatures? In the sandstorm? Are you sure you don't want some backup?
Fighting in a sandstorm is not for the faint-hearted. Anyone without extensive training and
Yeah, just leave them to Candace. Don't worry, she's as tough as they come.
Not Dia being a down bad simp for Kandake.
The winds died down. That means Candace still isn't back yet, though. Is she alright?
New
Maybe we should
five-star
go out
pyro
and check on her.
Claymore user is gay for.
When you put it that way, even I'm
Kandake.
starting to feel a little worried. All right, let's go. We've been here long enough, and the boys are as chatty as the floor.
Really? I hope you do, because I know you do like him.
But he's pulling back.
Oh! I didn't get hit by that, right? No. Cool.
Venti makes spring go bird.
I was paying attention. I looked away for 1 second.
Oh my god, it's the wolves. No.
Ooh. Candace, you're still fighting? You've been out here.
yes, they just keep coming in waves.
Ah, here comes another wave!
Leave this round to us. I got interrupt.
It's been quite a while since I've seen the flame main in action. I'll leave these to you then.
I'll be sure to put on a good show.
Hi, welcome to
Let's
Stream. Hi,
go.
my friend. I haven't seen you in a while.
Right now, emerge.
Hold the line.
Can't see.
Useless.
I missed. Ow.
Enshroud.
Right now, emerge.
Here comes another wave. When are they ever gonna let up?
Oh god.
Right here, emerge. Right now.
Worthless.
Right here, emerge.
The creatures stopped appearing. Was that the last of them?
I don't. I'm not.
What we fought just now was probably the aftermath of the sandstorm.
She is so
So we should be
pretty.
safe for the time being.
Well fought, everyone.
She's so
No
unnecessarily
injuries, I
pretty.
hope.
Huh? Who are you?
Thanks to the village.
My apologies. I haven't had a chance to greet you yet. I had my hands full taking care of the village's elderly and
Is he
children.
darker than her?
I am the chief of Aru village. Everyone usually calls me Uncle Anpu.
Sir, I am also originally from the desert, but I have not been back for some time now. May I ask if such sandstorms are common?
I can't say they've always been common, but recently the storms have become increasingly severe and frequent. Besides sandstorms, we also occasionally get
I've been
earthquakes.
grinding with Krobus. I've been
According
locked
to
in
an
a basement
investigator
doing
who
schoolwork.
stayed in the village a while ago,
They
these
just now let me out
unusual
to see the
natural
sun,
phenomena
and I
are
literally
related to the
did not know it was
withering of
Thursday. I was just like, I need
Irminsul.
to stream tonight. Even though it's Thursday and I don't stream.
Another effect of Irminsul's withering.
But yeah, they let me out of the basement for a
Irminsul's
while.
withering
There's gonna be points
causes
where they're gonna
withering
throw me
zones
back
in the
and
forest,
not feed me.
and
This is all a joke.
sandstorms
Twitch,
and
please not take this
earthquakes here in the
serious.
desert?
Everything in the natural
no, but I've
world
been
is
stuck in the
inextricably
studio
connected to Irminsul.
for a couple days and like
These
overcrowded with the
regional
work.
symptoms can
with
indeed
schoolwork.
be a reflection of Irminsul's present state.
Everyone in Aru village needs to take good care of themselves. Speaking of which, why haven't I seen a single village keeper since I got here?
Village keeper? Who are they? Village guards like Candace?
How they say her name differently. I understand they put
Does
the
your
Latin
curiosity
version,
know
which
no bounds?
feels like a slap to the
Village
face.
Keeper is how Aru village refers to mad scholars exiled here by the academia. Most of them are scholars who lost their sanity after a period of training in the Avidia forest. The academia believes that their crazed mutterings may have a negative effect on the psyches of other scholars. So, they're forcibly exiled to the desert. Though if you
Alas, that's exactly what we've been trying to investigate. One by
love the
one,
white man
the
not saying
village
anything.
keepers have been mysteriously disappearing without a trace. But no one in the village has ever seen them leave. If you're planning to stay around the village for the next few days, I'd appreciate it if you could keep an eye out for them.
I've had encounters with those people in the past. I'll see what I can do to help.
No.
The Matra are the ones
Wait, what? I didn't
responsible
hear
for
what he
their
said.
exile.
Then what is the new
Now that you're no longer with them, are you trying to alleviate your
No, that's
guilt and
Del Toro.
atone for your past sins?
What character system for
I'm
me this time?
fascinated by how you think.
Sino, Dia,
Mock me if you
Kandake,
will.
and slightly I'll
But
hate
if
them.
you are guilty,
Mostly everyone in this
I
party.
will eliminate you, regardless of my position or identity.
Oh, you're the former General Mahamatra. You must be an expert in these kinds of investigations. Thank you for your help.
Is it
I'm
because
trying
you're
not to.
reminded of Hypatia? Oh, these poor scholars. First they lose their sanity, now this! We need to help get them back home, safe and sound.
It's been more of
But,
just random
Is
things.
it really a
happening.
good idea to tag along with Sino? You seem like you really don't trust him.
I swear I'm
I'll
not
be
a furry.
grateful for the assistance.
But also, I do like his.
No doubt you will do a better job than some of
like
my
his
former
character. Like his
subordinates.
character designed.
Let's start by finding a spot to share what we know so far.
Never forget, he was the only few characters that was never leaked. No, it took forever for him to get leaked. Sino. He out of the first batch of characters, he was like the only one that was never leaked until the trailer came out, and then everything of him came out. Honestly.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting acid reflux right now.
Yeah, like, look at him. He's so cool.
No, I feel like I'm about to like vomit in my mouth. I'm apologizing to your Twitch chat right now if they can hear me saying this.
I'm accusing you of furry ship air. Please, no. Listen. Just because I like the fox woman and the fox boy, that does not make me a furry.
Huh?
You take it. Do I keep going here? These guys?
That was my reminder to switch his weapon. I'm pulling for his weapon later on.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you doing your cool thing.
Also, I don't have a lot of spear arms.
I cannot see it all, by the way.
Oh, do I have a white tassel? Yes, I do. I'm deeply surprised myself I have a white tassel still. I have one. Motherfucker, white tassels hate my ass. Oh shit, hold up. Candace. I mean, Kandake, where is she? Where's the love? Where's the beloved? There she is. Let me also give you a better weapon.
Everyone got these in their daily roulettes, didn't they?
Oh no, I fucked him. No, Yunjin.
Because everyone is level 6 right now except for me.
Where is she? Let me give you a better weapon now.
Oh, really?
I think this is...
I have a question about the daily roulette, actually. What, like, are they all, like, for levels?
But yeah, welcome to me slowly collecting every single goddamn character. Especially since most of these characters are coming soon. Or they're having their reruns soon.
You should sign up for Child if he comes out.
Oh, I will. I'm going to. Will I ever use him? No, but again, I also am doing Spiral Abyss challenge. I am doing the Abyss, so we'll see.
Wait, we're good. Everyone's here. Cool. What? Why can't I click on him?
She's so hot. Oh no, how much are you spending? I spent $130 in total. I spent $130 in total for them. But also that was like only like 2 payments. And then I lost the 50-50. So Kaching has another. We don't talk about this though. We don't talk about this though.
I'm scared.
Oh yes, I know I need to build him more, but his fucking his
You
thing.
do. You got him to C3. He deserves more respect.
He's C2.
Oh, C2. Still.
I know he needs more respect to his goddamn name. Because in my opinion, I think he's one of the hottest Archons.
Although I've sent myself into exile, I'm still doing essentially the same things as before. Do you still have any questions for me before we start our investigation?
We don't talk about how much money I
One
gave
of my
roommate,
former
though.
subordinates told me that this title has its origins in a strange incident.
My friend's birthday now. I'm like coming to the conclusion, but I love my
The
friend.
Academia has long exiled mad scholars to Aru Village. A mysterious phenomenon exists here. When mad scholars first arrive, they are as incoherent and deranged as before. But after spending some time here,
No, but the one character
they
I'm excited for
invariably
is
begin
Layla.
to calm
Why?
down.
Because she's a tired college
Initially,
student, and I love
the people of Aru Village greatly resented having to take in the mad scholars. But a strange incident one night changed that. Aru village was struck by the strongest earthquake in living memory. Seeing buildings on the verge of collapse all around him, the then chief of the village was preparing to take everyone to safety. Suddenly, he noticed a mad scholar crouching in a corner, caressing the ground with his hands.
You miss Scaramouche showing up.
A soft, green light
Buddy,
radiated
that
from
was
him,
a scream.
like a divine glow against the backdrop of night. Despite the powerful tremors that ripped through the ground that night, all the houses remained upright, almost as if they had grown roots reaching deep into the ground. In the end, not a single building collapsed, and no one was hurt. After that, the people of Aru village treated the mad scholars with greater kindness, and began to refer to them as the village keepers.
I'm so happy for his voice actor to get Sino out of
a mad scholar protecting Aru village? Paimon thinks so too. Actually, Sino, do you know if any of the mad scholars continued to wear their Akasha terminals at Aru village?
In theory, they would continue wearing them so the academia could still monitor their activities. With that said, the main Akasha system would no longer have any interaction with them.
Oh, no wonder! Everything makes sense then! Add in the fact that they calmed down, it was probably Nahida who calmed them.
If you are able to draw a conclusion from this one story alone, then it appears you possess much more information than I do. So, what do you make of the story? Really? Lesser Lord Kusanami.
I'm on Honestly Betray the Traveler. I'm not gonna be surprised, and I'm going to enjoy that fight for every
definitely
second.
using the Akasha to give her power to the mad scholars.
Paimon is Mr. Obvious.
It's not so much that I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I'm just struck by your reasoning.
Yeah, Paimon
Lesser
will
Lord
have like her like
Kusanali,
random points
the
of just like, oh, I can
current
definitely tell you
Dendro
care, but also at some point I'm like, I don't
Is she
fully
really
fucking trust
active
your
in
ass.
Sumeru? The Academia has always placed far greater importance on the late Greater Lord Rukkhadevata. They've more or less ignored Lesser Lord Kusanali, and I've never had any reason to doubt their views.
Ray
In
got that
addition,
stuck in my head. Everyone blame
I've
Ray.
never heard any stories about Lesser Lord Kusanali and her deeds. To me,
Also, hey Ray,
she might as well have been a god that never existed.
Scared coma.
No way! Nahida definitely exists!
I know you're not here, and I know you
How
watch
should
this
Paimon
later.
put it?
I know you're gonna
She's a
stab me
good
for this. The hell is
Archon
it?
who's kind and wise. Even if she says weird stuff sometimes.
If you want to know what I'm talking about, check our Discord.
We'll probably have to do that tomorrow.
I've spent many years interrogating criminals, so I can easily tell when someone is lying.
I'm gonna have to wait so long.
Good! Then you should know that we're telling the truth.
That look in your eyes.
But the ultimate weapon fight is awesome.
I've never seen that from a liar. You two really must have met Lesser Lord Kusanali.
Hi.
How can this be? To think, our Archon has been amongst us this entire time.
Alright, now it's our turn to put our skills to good use for this event, but easier said than done. Especially since we don't have any leads. Maybe we can start by knocking on some doors.
No, it depends. It depends how they're done. Depends if they're done right.
Excuse me, are you here to help me find my grandpa?
Huh?
By the sounds of it, a resident of this village.
My name is Isak. You'll help me find my grandpa, right?
Is your grandpa a mad scholar?
Hey, don't say that. Grandpa is just Grandpa. Why do you have to call him that? It's not like he's a bad person or anything.
The person you're referring to is not a local, yet you are. Why do you call him Grandpa?
I have been
Grandpa is just Grandpa. He's my family.
2015.
I heard everything you said to the village chief. Please, you gotta take me with you. I want to find my grandpa. I swear I'll help. I won't be a nuisance.
Is this where we fight Pretty Lady?
Ah, so you're the one who was eavesdropping on us around the village chief's house.
You're disgusting.
I was planning to go out and take care of whoever it
I
was.
swear I didn't.
But I had a
choke because
vague
of that.
feeling
I looked at
that they
something
didn't
and it's
harbor
brought back
any ill
unnecessary
intent.
flashbacks.
Whoa. Hazen wasn't kidding about Matra having sharp senses. Sino, he's just a kid. All he wants is to find his grandpa. Let's find a way to help him.
Sorry. I was only listening in because I wanted to know where Grandpa went. Honest. If you don't believe me, you can ask Miss Candace.
All right.
You're so tiny you could.
But first, let's confirm the facts with Candace.
There's so many. If you look at this game, it's so funny because you'll see voice actors and you'll be like, huh, what do I hear them in? Oh, they're in popular anime, and most of them are on TikTok.
I still don't think it makes any sense for guys to have survived the explosion.
What?
This doesn't make any sense. What? I hate you so much. I don't want to kill her. She's so pretty.
So you know how I've been exploring since last night. Tell me why I almost have 30 Oculus for level 6.
Oh my gosh. What'd you say? That's not fair! I wasn't listening.
I have two in the desert that I need to get, and then the rest are in the no, I have 2 in the jungle I need to get. Oh! Oh god. Would you like to hear my exploration percents in the desert? 36, 25, and 29.
Bruh, there's something wrong with you. Oh, they have been exploring the desert to a crazy amount. Oh no.
It's called I Have Nothing Due until the end of this week. Ah! Me every time I have to fight the Rain Shogun.
Oh my god, you're freaking using their party poppers, I hate you. Is that what you've been trying to get me to see this whole time?
Oh, pet cute. Yeah, it's Cloudtainer. You get her for the anniversary event.
Sino is super vigilant. Is this what all the Matra are like?
Ah, you're back already.
We just wanted to confirm something with you. Do you know a boy by the name of Isak?
I had a feeling he'd go looking for you.
Huh? You knew this would happen?
It's funny how I slaved away to get a Sealy.
Yes.
And they were like, now let's
Although
give you,
he tried his best to stay hidden,
Cloud Retainer pet.
I
which is
still
funny enough
noticed
is
him
my roommate's
eavesdropping
favorite,
outside the
NPC.
window. He really
Which I
wants to get
respect.
his grandfather back. Isak's parents were both Aramite mercenaries who rarely returned to the village after finding employment in the city.
Also,
He
there's
was
something
raised
going to
by
be
his
on the stream
grandfather.
soon. Ray is starting to
Unfortunately,
work on it.
it
and
was
it's
only
really
a few
cute
years
and
before his
happy.
grandpa
It's
passed
not a
away.
VTuber. Ray doesn't know how to do that shit
Isak
yet.
was
I'm
still
not gonna-
very
I'm not
young at the
expecting her
time,
to.
so various families in the village took turns caring for him so he could survive. Later, an elderly mad scholar arrived at the village. Isak thought the scholar bore a striking resemblance to his grandfather, and thus often spied on the man. However, the scholar was unkempt in appearance and incoherent in speech. Although Isak referred to the man as his grandpa, he was afraid and didn't dare to approach him.
I wonder who else has
One
that
summer
shit.
night, the oft mumbling and bumbling grandpa suddenly calmed down and seemed to
Technically
become
not
more
that far, but
lucid.
he does mention it.
He even noticed Isak hiding in the distance.
It's fine. We
So
don't worry about
Grandpa
that
walked
shit.
up to Isak and patted him on the head. He even took Isak to the entrance of the village, where he patiently taught the boy the names of the stars, and accompanied Isak until he fell asleep. The next morning, Isak woke up and wanted to go find his grandpa again, only to realize his grandpa no longer recognized him. However, even so, Grandpa retained his calm expression. It's said that those who saw the scholar claimed he no longer appeared to be crazy, but appeared to be living in his own world, almost as if he were sleepwalking. Isak was thrilled that his grandpa was able to find peace and would follow him all the time, asking him things like, "Grandpa, want me to take you somewhere fun?" Or,
I was about to be like, I have no idea what you're talking
"Grandpa,
about.
could you tell me stories about the stars again?"
God damn it, I love them. I'm an astrology kid, god damn it. Which again, a lot of people are not surprised about. Someone straight up called me a crystal bitch once on stream, and I was like, you are not wrong. I have
Nearly everyone who lives in the desert has some form of hardship or regret. But even so, we must still continue on with our lives. It's also my reason for fighting. I must continue to protect this land.
I don't know if it's because I'm not attracted to blonde people.
She's not blonde, she's got armor on. I think the armor is pretty.
Maybe the people have always had a considerate God watching over them.
Huh? What did you say, Sino?
No, nothing. As long as Esau keeps his word and doesn't get in our way, we can take him along.
Damn.
Perhaps you are more compassionate than I gave you credit for. Please accept my thanks on Isak's behalf, Sino.
I need to stop singing that.
I got a player commendation.
Damn, if only we can get real combinations.
Hey, Isak!
Look for a drop to check.
Oh, it's you guys! We've cleared everything up. Let's go. Really? Wow! Thank you so much! Yeah!
Alright. Let's ask the local residents.
Me when Scaramouche comes out.
The Magitech armor. I'm gonna get my baby at once I'm done with class. I'm so excited. I also want to get Fantasia. I mean, it's free.
Oh, for a second I thought that was it. I was like, damn, that's really short. But yeah, I will mention this. These waypoints and this aren't shown when you first open the desert. They're from the quest. Also, ignore where the fuck I'm going. Yes, I did the R&R quest. I regret every fucking second of it, but they're adorable. They give me free therapy. The R&R just give me free therapy at this point. It's like, listen, I know I was here for 70 fucking hours. But you are very cute and you give me therapy, so. Onion tree, onion tree. Oh my god, you are tiny.
He is sweet.
Also, did you see that Family Day is coming up?
Yeah, I sent it to my mom. So you see how tiny he is in game. Just wait till you meet him in real life.
Listen, I know I'm short, but fuck.
Don't lie.
Sometimes we need our daily dope of dump. Yes! Hey, fucking men! Oh god, I somehow leveled up the trees twice. Help.
Because you saying you're 2'3" just makes me sound really short. Because you're like a head taller than me. Shut up. What are you doing?
I got the free wishes. They're free wishes.
You're not gonna save them?
Absolutely not. I probably should, seeing how this just happened.
The Praetorium, the one you really wanted.
Also, the shop resets tomorrow.
I know, I'm excited.
So I'm gonna buy more soon. Hush. Hello? Oh, hi. Hi, Shinobu.
So we could do it then. Since we apparently can't do it this weekend because someone will be able
Shinobu's Shinobu's now C6. I would like to announce that Shinobu is now C6. I love looking at all my characters who aren't C6 and I'm like, damn, there's gonna be a day you are. Except for you. Fuck you. Fuck you in particular.
It is so big. It is. Is it like that? Is it the same
Like,
size for
look at
everyone?
them! Look at them! They give me the dopamine! They make me happy!
I do, it's so cool.
Even though there's like 70 of these little fucks I gotta find. I also need to fight these.
It's gonna take me forever to get to that point, so that's just mean that you're rubbing that in my face.
Fuck those don't fine.
It's so cool. How do you get that again? So it's gonna take me forever to do that too, huh?
Excuse me, did you
They're all
happen
beside
to see where
Krobus.
the missing scholars
Yes.
went?
You mean the village keepers?
Oh, you got it!
Let me
I just
think.
realized that.
When I was eating dinner the other day, I saw one of them by the side of the road, muttering away and eating mushrooms and tree roots. They shouldn't go around eating that kind of stuff.
Okay. Did you notice anything else?
Anything
I've also thought about
else?
restarting my my Stardew world because
No,
there's more
I
mods
think
I want
that's
to
all
download.
I have to tell you. Sorry.
So I've thought about restarting it. Damn.
The scholars that have gone missing. Have you seen them?
Those eyes. Those fierce eyes. You
Sign out,
look
you're
like a
scaring
real
people.
fighter.
Don't change the subject.
Damn.
Right. You were asking about the mad scholars. I think it's been a few days since I last saw them. I usually go to bed pretty early, so I'm not too familiar with what goes on at night. But honestly, I feel quite sympathetic towards them. Even though they act a little strange, they've helped me in the past. If it weren't for them, my house would have collapsed long ago.
Do you also think Grandpa and the others are good people?
Grandpa? Oh, hello there. It's little Isak. You mean that nice man who looks like your grandpa's long-lost twin, right? He was actually the one who protected my house. I saw it with my own eyes. He happened to be staying near my house that day and was doing something with his hands on the ground. It still feels pretty surreal now that I think back on it. Did someone teach them how to do that?
You make himself still look
Well,
cool.
whatever the case, I'll always be thankful to him and whoever taught him to look out for others.
You can do cool
I'm
shit. Why are
pretty
you looking
sure
at
that
me?
if I ever went
Being
mad,
judged by a cat.
I wouldn't be able to do anything like that.
And there's no way I can look at his ears.
Gotcha.
No, they're so cool
Thank
because
you.
he has so many like Egyptian like design qualities to him that like it makes design brain go burr.
It makes you look blonde. That hat makes you look blonde.
Babies, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No, I interrupted a moment. I'm so sorry. I will forever be mad I cannot pet a cat. No, and then there's Tsunari. Boy who actually has fox ears.
Oh, your t-shirt and jeans. Sorry, I forgot about that.
The fuck did I just hear? Huh?
Why is it taking so long? What the heck are you doing?
That was weird. Nah, but like, look at. Oh, damn it, he has the other ideal. Look at the ears.
Oh no!
The fucking. Nah, he got a tail too. You're gonna bully anyone, it's this man right here.
No. I am scared.
No, give me the ear ideal. I will sit here until you give me the fucking.
Here, right? We're gonna get his speech. I wish I could play the frickin' TikTok version.
Cloud retainer. The cloud retainer pad has
If you
an
press a leaf between dry sheets of paper, you can make an attractive and handy bookmark.
No, give me the ideal. Give me the fluffy ear ideal.
Why do you keep saying ideal?
Because it's their ideal.
It's an idol.
Oh, my bad. I always say ideal.
Because it's when they're standing idle. Chicken butt.
Look at him. Look at him.
It was like confusing. I thought you were talking about something completely different.
Keep up.
No, I always just said ideal. Like ideal animation. It just made sense in my brain.
Sir, have you seen my grandpa recently?
Keep the content going.
You know, the one who likes to sit and space out near the village entrance.
Oh, well, if it isn't Isak.
No, I need to bring
your grandpa, huh?
Atlas to do a stream with me. I know they won't. I know they won't do
The
one.
last time I saw him, he was spacing out by
but
the
having
road as
them is
usual.
slightly chaotic.
I went and asked him if he'd like any of the food I had prepared, despite my wife's protest.
Pure chaotic. I don't think it's
Like
uploaded
many
to
people,
YouTube
she's
because we're
really
editing
quite terrified of them.
also.
And speaking of my wife, she's still always complaining about how I don't make
passing.
enough mora. Might explain why she's always mad at me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for taking care of him.
It was nothing. You're looking for him, right? Did he go for a walk and get lost?
Yeah.
Why does it feel like I'm
That's
hearing
no
Simon's
good.
story?
Well, once you found him, come by my place again and I'll cook a little something for the both of you. I've known you since you were very young. So as far as I'm concerned, you're family. Please feel free to come by anytime.
Wow, what a nice guy. Okay.
Ayo.
Thank you, sir.
Huh? Don't say anything for now.
Okay.
Isak, stay here. Let's head over there. Stay quiet as you
I
move.
will shut the fuck up.
Listen, see if you can make out what they're saying.
Have you heard? The mighty Scarlet King, the sovereign of our faith, will soon return to this world.
Yes, of course I have. The Scarlet King is the one and only true ruler of this land.
Yeah,
I've never believed
tomorrow
in any other
I will
gods.
try.
Still,
I'll do
you
the
say he's
I'll do the
coming
Mondstack
back,
quest, or I'll do like that
it
story.
sure doesn't feel like life's
and then
about
I'll
to change
explore the
around
rest of the
here
desert and the story
anytime
quests I
soon.
have.
What's your
Well,
proof?
he does have super hearing.
Haven't you noticed? The village has been getting more deranged scholars than ever. Delavar was saying that many people also went insane just before the fall of the Scarlet King civilization in ancient times. We don't quite know why, but it seems like there's some sort of connection between insanity and the Scarlet King. Isn't it a sign of the Scarlet King's power that all the mad scholars have disappeared? If you ask me, they must have been chosen as the final sacrifice for the Scarlet King's resurrection.
I'm sorry, the what? The
Huh.
what?
Now that you say it, that does make some sense. Does this mean our lives are finally
Oh my
going
God,
to
he's
take a
really
turn for
voicing
the better?
NPC right now.
Exactly.
It's Alejandro.
Those city folks will get what's coming to them.
That is hilarious. I love that.
Now, repeat everything you've just said from the very beginning.
Huh?
Who are you? Where did you come from?
My patience is running thin.
Oh shit.
You heard what I asked.
Hello. That's hot. What?
Yeah. Bro, this guy's something else. Just look at his eyes. One wrong move, and he's gonna flay us alive.
I mean,
Let's not get on his bad side, okay? I am no match for this guy.
So, yeah.
Oh, okay, good sir.
I'm just gonna
What
go
is it
head
you would
out,
like
be
to
down
know?
bad, summer.
Tell me about the Scarlet King's resurrection.
I said for like
Well,
majority.
I only know a few things from hearsay. I went for a drink the other day and heard others talking about a rumor that the madmen will disappear and that the Scarlet King will return to this land. I'm not making this up. I swear.
Who? He said John Wick.
Hey,
Yeah.
go on. Keep talking.
Listen,
It's
Connor
true.
is a fine
It's all
ass
true,
man.
sir. We desert folk have had more than enough of those people at the academia. They keep sending us all their mad scholars and won't let us have a good life. Would you want to live like this if you were in our place? The radicals were even more thrilled than me when they heard the news. We're all praying for the Scarlet King's speedy return. Delavar also said that once the Scarlet King returns to our side, it's only a matter of time before we conquer the land on the other side of the wall. They're all willing to serve under the Scarlet King and fight for a share of the glory.
Is that so?
Seems like he still wants to know more.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
Yeah.
Got it. At first, I told myself it was just the drink talking, but then all the mad scholars vanished without a trace, just as the rumors said. Please don't beat me up just for mentioning these rumors. If I'm guilty, then everyone else around here is also guilty. I'm just saying what the others said.
The people here really like the Scarlet King, but dislike the Dendro Archon.
I wonder why.
Where is this radical person you talked about?
I haven't run into him over the past few days, so he probably hasn't been around the village. What about you, man? Have you seen him at all?
Because I'm like,
No, not at all. We wouldn't dare lie to you. He's really not here right now.
Sounds like you're not too close with the radicals.
No, of course not. All we know are their names.
I have many ways to stop you from talking, and many others to stop you from sending warning messages. So you'd best just stay home and hope I don't hear of you trying to contact anybody.
Oh no.
Don't do anything until I've gotten to the bottom of this.
Yes, sir.
Try something foolish, and even Candace won't be able to protect
Still
you.
not their name. They say the name wrong,
Yes.
but
Yes,
fuck.
got it.
Okay.
We'll do just as you say.
That scared Paimon half to death. Sino is pretty terrifying.
Oh shit.
He didn't try to reassure us at all. It's like he's used to hearing that. Oh, Paimon, that's a lot.
I heard that.
Oh shit.
Sorry.
It's part of being a Matra. The rumor we heard just now seems like a strong lead. But we need to check a few more places. Very well.
You don't remember if his voice changes.
Isaac!
I'm here.
Where's your grandpa's house?
Well, I can take you there.
I'm still laughing at the
Just
fact that
follow
my
me.
two screens I'm looking at, they're not monitors, are different, have different like lighting things on there.
Embrace a wonderful new life.
Oh god, I gotta follow child. Child.
You tricked me.
Who the fuck do you think I was following, Dory?
Grandpa? He likes to be alone.
Oh.
Sometimes he stares at the sky in a daze, and other times he just pokes at the ground with his fingers. Every now and then, he yells out at the top of his
Also,
lungs,
sand
so
physics make brain
a lot
go
of people
fucking
are really
ballistic.
scared of him. But he's a good person, really. I know he is.
Welcome to the
I
did Ray
like my real grandpa.
did fucking Ray and Akira draw dicks in the sand for 2 minutes? Yes. They literally sent me a video of them doing it. I was like, this is the most plot twist. Dory finds you instead. Then I better pray I have my money.
Well, this is where Grandpa usually stays.
There sure isn't much here.
No.
What?
Incense? Please don't, but are you okay?
There's a scent that you can sense, but I can't.
A certain traveler here once passed out from that smell. Thankfully, Tainari
Nah,
saved the day.
Dory is one of the few
Then
characters
he
in this
gave
game
us
that
a
I
long
don't
lecture
like.
to explain all about how it worked.
I don't.
So,
I like the personality,
you know
and I like
Tainari.
part of the design, knowing that's like part of the Turkish
You know him
culture,
too?
but I just
Are
don't
you
like
two friends?
like
Yes.
them as a whole.
Hmm.
If that makes sense.
Now that I concentrate, I can also make out the scent of incense.
Wait, surely Tainari didn't lecture you too.
No. No need.
Oh, there goes Traveler.
Did you first encounter this scent at Tainari's house? In the forest. From a scholar.
Oh, there goes Gravity.
The only vehicle I'll talk to
I'm feeding the people with silent Inari.
Because we're just too strong. Well, it's the... You could say it's the man at heart. You could say it's the man at heart.
I love the way how the traveler walks. I don't know why.
What are you looking for, Sino?
Is this weird to
Here it
say I
is.
like how the traveler walks? Like, the animation's really pretty.
Take a look right here.
It's just the way how, like, the skirt bounces as well.
Paimon doesn't see anything.
Elemental sight, bitch.
Although the traces have been completely buried in the sand, there are footprints here. From the size and shape, they belong to an adult male. This pattern is a common one from this area. Local shoes. This was probably someone from the village. The scent is quite faint, but still extant. The footprints head in the direction of the door.
But who would come looking for Grandpa? He doesn't have any friends.
We'd have to ask whoever lured him away with the incense.
Huh? So you can lure someone away with just a scent? Hey, what's wrong with liking good food? Everyone's got something they love in life.
Oh yes, we're still bullying Paimon
Exactly.
for being food.
Most scholars are fond of incense, since the smell supposedly helps them clear their minds and discover new knowledge. Even deep within the clutches of madness, they still yearn for their knowledge-seeking days, and will follow the scent whenever it presents itself.
Her eyes weren't fully closed and they're like half open. I didn't see her pupil and I just saw like the green of her eyes and I was like, that's fucking terrifying.
Huh. Still, why would anyone... Are the rumors really true? Could the disappearance of all the mad scholars have something to do with the radicals?
It's highly likely.
Please, you have to save my Grandpa. Grandpa's never done anything wrong. Please help him.
Sounds like we'd better help get him back. Don't you worry, Isak. We won't let whoever took him get away with it.
Let's head to Aru Village and inform Candace and the others about what we learned here. After that, we'll set off to find the scholars.
Good, your tears hydrate me.
Wow.
Oh no, the day child gets his ass kicked is the day I fucking it's the day I die happy.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare manifest that! That's disgusting. How could you? They're freaking manifesting. They keep talking about child dying.
No, I said the day child gets his ass kicked. I'm not saying dead.
You said it earlier though, so that's why I assumed.
Listen, I just want to see child get his ass kicked. That's all I want.
He can get beat up. I will accept that.
I just want to see this man get his ass kicked so then we can have the comfort from the traveler. But
Exactly.
also, and so then you can be happy. But also, I kind of want to slap the shit out of the ginger some more.
He can get beat up. He can't die. He can't die.
Oh no, I'm still putting my money that Lisa's the first character to die.
I will not care if she dies. No tears will be shed.
Yeah, I'm the same way. No tears will be shed if Lisa dies.
Oh, here it is. Here's the boy with the attention deficit issues.
Fuck you, that's me. Candace, my beloved. Oh, that's Dia.
Right. The darker fabric definitely looks a lot better.
His armor is really cool though.
That'd be my choice
Women.
too.
Women.
We're back, Candace.
Women that can kick my ass.
Got a lot to tell you.
Ah, welcome back.
Sounds like everyone's friends already.
Oh, Dia's here too.
You bet. So, everything goes smoothly?
Reasonably.
Ooh, now we have
Thaddeus
Thaddeus.
didn't go with you?
Yeah.
He's like, I've always been in your shadow.
We haven't seen him at all.
We also don't know if this is a part of her hair
I
or
saw him
like if
around
it's
the
her
village
ears,
entrance earlier.
but I'm
I
assuming
figured
it's
he was
like part of her
investigating with
hair.
you. I guess he must have gone off on his own.
Yeah, because she has
Did you
normal
find out
hair,
anything
but then
useful?
you have the braid right here that like finishes.
Also, do you only think now
I see.
it's like better?
So someone used a kind of incense to lead the exiled scholars away from the village.
I don't think it is.
The resurrection of the Scarlet King? First I've heard of it. Far as I know, the kind of incense you just mentioned is only popular beyond the wall.
Yeah, I didn't.
Scholars are fond of it, but as you can see, there aren't many scholars still studying around these parts. No seller would be able to make a profit here. Not to mention, making incense is a labor-intensive process. You won't see anybody in the desert with the patience to make or sell something that requires that kind of effort. It seems
Okay, I
someone
actually
from
really like the
beyond the
detail
wall
put
must have
into
been
her necklace.
supporting this.
Samsung's make brain go burr.
Makes sense.
I'm not blind.
So what should we do then? Do we go back to the academia and search for leads there?
If it was any other day, that would be your next logical step. But today, you've got me on your team, so you get an extra tip. Didn't you say that the villager got his news from the tavern? Well, I also like to drink at the tavern, so I know a thing or two about these radicals he mentioned.
These radical leftists, I'm
If I
sorry.
remembers correctly, the leader of the radicals is some guy called Delavar.
Ah, yeah. Delavar, the scar-riddled bandit, Engur, the wide-eyed butcher, and Jabari, the duck-tailed bearded crook. The whole lot of them are known around these parts.
It's weird. I don't like it.
These guys have one thing in common.
Not sign
and
looking
that's
over at the
being
traveler
broke.
when we do the thing.
The rougher life gets, the more they want to believe in the Scarlet King. Way they see it, the Scarlet King's resurrection is their only chance at overthrowing the Academia.
Damn.
Throwing all of Sumeru into chaos is the only way to change the way of life here in the desert. Anyway, that's my guess why they've
respect the
chosen to become
shortness.
radicals.
Tia,
He looks like the person
You really know this
that's one of
place
these
inside and out.
That I like.
She won!
No. Oh yeah, I don't think so.
She absolutely would step on me for dominance. Dia would absolutely step on people for dominance.
No merc can afford to slack off on gathering
Absolutely.
intelligence.
I'd be like,
Every
yeah,
more
you
I've
can,
spent in the
you
tavern
can
has
step
been
on my
a
throat, but
valuable
also we need to go get our
investment.
nails done later.
Let's head out.
Now hold on, you're staying right here, Sino.
Hey yo, why are we sending the?
Why?
I meant 3.
Aru Village is not a big place. Outsiders stand out here like a sore thumb. I'd bet word about you has already gotten out. The desert is unforgiving, so the way of life here is also a lot tougher than on the outside of the wall.
If she starts to
You
insult
survive on
Paimon,
making
just-
connections.
She tells
out here.
Paimon to shut up later on.
Compared to you, mercs like me are just third-rate amateurs. I've got no actual fighting skills to speak of.
okay, I guess what
But that also makes it a whole lot easier for me to gain the locals' trust.
That is not true, and you know it.
I need to go around and ask some questions, but it'll be difficult if you're with me.
What are you talking about now?
Fine.
Good, then we've got a plan. The Traveler and Paimon will go to Caravan Rebot with me, and we'll try our best to figure out where the mad scholars have been taken. Sino, you'll have to stay in the village and continue investigating on your own.
Alright, sounds like a plan.
Uh-oh. Why does someone always have to overhear the conversation in this game?
The person who runs the Adventurers Guild in Uba.
I did not mean to press that. Oh god. But yeah, welcome to I have too much godforsaken time on my hands. Oh my god, I went up to 36.
Well, here we are again.
Sounds like you're starting to get familiar with the area.
Paimon's amazed every time we see the wall of Samiel. How can a wall this tall even exist?
Ask Trump.
It's almost unreal.
I know what you mean. I had the same question every time I walked this way when I was a kid. Also, why is this high wall here? And can a wall really block sandstorms?
Why? What caused that? What brought that? They said that's Trump.
No, I said ask Trump.
Ask Trump. Either way, Trump shouldn't have been brought in this conversation.
They asked about building a wall, and
There's a wall. There's a wall in Genshin.
I hate myself.
It was only after I grew up that I realized the Wall of Samiel isn't just there to keep out the sandstorms. It serves a more important purpose, keeping out people like us. Sumeru is run by wise and mighty sages. To them, us desert dwellers are nothing but tools that can be used and discarded at their whim.
Someone in New York.
We're cheap labor, like livestock, but easier to control. Nothing more.
I'm sorry, that just came into my mind.
Even if a child from the desert got the chance to obtain an Akasha terminal, almost all their requests for knowledge would be denied.
Oh my god.
The academia believes we're underserving.
I'm mad at myself for that joke, but I'm also really proud of myself at the same time.
Geniuses like
I'm like, damn, I
Sataria
hate that I
are
brought
one
him
in a
up, but at the
million.
same time, I'm like, yeah.
The other children never get a single chance to
This
try
is
and
gonna
rewrite
bite
their
me in the
fate.
ass later on.
Even though the academia knows very well that we're humans, just as they are.
It would make me a super big hypocrite because I'm a simp for freaking Dottore.
Listen, I can sit for the village, but I condone their actions. Just look at me with the Dream SMP. I sit for like majority of the villains.
Well, like I was gonna be like, look, Nero wants us dead, but so does Dottore, so I can't.
Dottore will not hesitate to.
I can't talk.
Hey, Dia.
Motherfucker, Scaramouche is poisonous. Yeah, here we are.
Thinking about doing anything scary, are you?
What does Nero have? Nothing.
No, not at all. This place just
he got no
gets me
looks, he got no
thinking, that's
bitches,
all.
and he's just a villain to be a
Besides,
bitch.
we're here to procure information, aren't we?
Get your team too.
Yep.
I don't give a shit. Fuck the redeeming villain, unless they do it right, which in that case be my guess. But nah.
I hate Nero. I hate him.
Caravan Rebot is crawling with people, so be careful what you say.
Quoting
We don't want anyone to find out what we're here
Please,
for.
no, I don't need a
Our
quote. I
mission
don't need
started the
that
moment
appearing
we
up in the
arrived here.
Discord.
Let's go check out the tavern. Maybe we'll find someone I know.
But what about the other guy?
I feel it coming in the air, and the streets are everywhere.
Did you do the new version or the old?
Shut up, Shao. Those memories, so dark.
Memories.
Yeah.
So dark.
It'd be like a dungeon or something, but now it's like an in-story thing.
Just our luck. None of them are here today.
You mean you don't see anyone you know?
Dia, is that you?
Yeah, I know. That's why I was asking.
What a coincidence.
Tall
You here for a
women who
drink
can
too?
kick my ass, and I would say thank you.
Zaki.
Oh,
Finally, a friendly face.
The speech is coming. Dude.
Oh,
someone
and
replaced
who do you have with you
the
here?
speech with
Guests
frickin'
from another
SpongeBob's
land?
voice and had their character look like Patrick.
Gotta love the internet.
Hello. I'm Zaki.
Why is
Dia's, how would you put it? Drinking buddy?
We've had drinks together a few times. You could say we go back a ways. Anyway, as far as my friends here, they aren't too shabby, are they? You rarely see any Outlanders so friendly and
I'm
respectful
gonna have to
nowadays.
listen back to this VOD. I'm gonna be crying inside.
Absolutely. Much better than those people on the other side of the wall. So, Dia, are you looking for someone?
Yeah. Have you seen Edgar, Delavar, or Jabari recently?
Of course I have. Matter of fact, we were all here drinking together just a few days ago.
I've got a spice trading deal from another nation. I thought maybe Delavar and his friends might be interested. Know where I could find him?
Ah, how thoughtful of you. Then I assume you also know that Delavar's been having a hard time making ends meet these days. So, you came here to help him out?
Hey, keep it down. Let's just say I prefer to keep this deal a secret. Y'all at Caravan Rebot are like family. If there's more to be made, why not do it together? Besides, Delavar and his friends have muscle. They'd be a good fit for escorting the goods.
Yes, how considerate of you. Delavar's my friend too, so of course I can take you to him. Come with me.
But the gods do exist. You literally fight them. I do.
hotel today?
Does his voice change? But it's so iconic.
The damned will sooner die again than lay a hand on me.
So he's not at the hotel today? Travelers. I'll risk taking risk, we'll find it here.
Alphino goes British. Why does he just change his armor gold? That's such a weird thing that they did.
What?
It literally is gold. What are you talking about? Oh my gosh.
Ew. I hate how this is like in the. Hey, what the fuck did I come back to in Minecraft? What?
Those memories. So dark.
I think you can really tell.
Hey, we're
that
back.
he has
Yeah, sorry, I had to
to
use the bathroom.
With the such devastation line. You know? Yeah.
Animation.
Are we there yet?
Not quite.
Yep, this is the place.
I don't trust you.
This place is practically deserted. What are they doing in a place like
What
this?
if I lie to you to make you think something happens?
Are you talking to me about that?
Yes, you.
Why don't you take a guess?
I have that power.
Go
by
on.
doing this story
A wild
before.
stab in the dark.
I just realized that.
You're like lambs to the
I mean, I know
slaughter.
partially. So again, you can, and I won't be mad. But oh my god, I was right not to trust your ass.
It's an ambush!
No shit, Sherlock. Would you like to point the obvious out to everything else?
What's this all about,
Oh my gosh,
Saki?
you're getting the line. Or you already heard it.
Come on, Dia. You really think we didn't hear about what you said back in Aru village? The boys have kept a close eye on you from the moment you set foot there.
Yeah.
Not only do I know that you're looking for Delavar, I also know that you've teamed up with people from the Academia to look for the missing scholars.
So, you've been watching us
okay,
from the
just not
very
me.
beginning?
About that.
It's still
I'm a newly.
And you left the strongest one in the village, didn't ya? Who do you think
Nah,
you
she can
are?
kick your ass and I'll be happy
you
with
really
that.
thought we'd fall for your little business deal nonsense?
So you and Delavar have been partners all along.
Dia, I guess it's only natural for a traveling mercenary like you to be out of the loop. Those of us who hang around the tavern have stronger bonds than you think. But you got one thing right. We're all looking forward to an uprising in Sumeru. There's nothing more we'd like to see than the desert folk overthrowing the
it's raining again.
Academia.
If that's the case,
Keeps
then I'm
raining
sure
during these
Delavar
cinematic
wouldn't
ass
miss
shots.
it.
Oh, it got dark. Oh
I'll
my god,
be
if I
honest
get another
with you,
cutscene in
if
the
it weren't
dark.
for what you said in the village, your little monologue about the wall of Samio would have convinced me that you're one of us.
Delavar. And Enger, you're here too, huh?
Damn.
Oh no.
Long time no see,
Except for
Miss
one.
Mercenary.
Except for one.
You should have known the traitors are what us followers of the
More time is
Scarlet
always good.
King
We've been in lore.
despise
This
the
entire
most.
stream has just been lore.
Dia, I thought that you, a fellow desert dweller, would understand that the Scarlet King is greater than the Dendro Archon. Little did I know, you don't deserve to join us.
It still doesn't make sense that he
Yeah,
survives. I'm
gee,
sorry.
what a missed opportunity. Adopting radical views and kidnapping innocent scholars, all because of some baseless rumors.
Shut up!
Anything else I'm missing out on?
Oh, it's me.
See? There you have it. Mercenaries are just a bunch of faithless scum with only one thing on their minds.
Oh, well,
Mora.
this fight is a lot easier than I
Pathetic.
remembered.
You're all like a pack of street rats.
Oh, I forgot at the
You're not
start.
wrong. Mercenaries are driven by Mora, and my faith lies with whoever's paying me. As long as there's a profit to be made, anyone can become
Sorry,
my
I hit my
friend.
mic.
Enough
Yes, let
talking.
the lesbian stand up to a bunch of men.
Oh no!
Just as I expected. Let's teach him a lesson, traveler.
I told you I know depth perception. That's not fair.
Why does Paimon look terrifying every single?
Just following orders.
Right here, right now.
Enshroud!
Allow me! Emerge, right now. Emerge.
Before anyone asks, no, Tanari is not built. He's just here because I like the fox boy. Hell yeah.
Impossible! How could you?
It's not like Dotori where he's
So, what do you think about your meticulous network now, Zaki? How did you say it? It's only natural for a traveling mercenary like me to be out of the loop. I'm guessing your informant told you that I'm just an incompetent merc with no real fighting skills, correct? I mean, that is what I said after all.
Yes, we love a lesbian.
And of course you would believe everything he reported. The only thing you know about me is that I'm a mercenary, but you've never seen me in action.
so close.
Even though you heard we went to handle monsters together, you believe
can't wait
that
to see her
Candace was
actually
the
be
only
playable.
one doing all the real fighting. That so-called
I'm
flame
still
main is
crying
just a
stuff. I feel like
fraud.
it's gonna be
She
gonna be a
admitted it
mix of,
herself.
like, doesn't
She just
know
uses
how
her
to fight and at the
connections to
same
gain the
time,
trust
like,
of
really,
others.
fuck
That's what
around,
you
find
thought,
out.
right?
It's gonna be fuck
Lied
around,
in the
find out
village
sword skills.
because
It's gonna be
you figured
great.
that we'd have people watching you.
And you were stupid enough to fall for it.
Damn.
I figured as much the first time we drank together. You all thought you were so smart. Pathetic.
Hello.
I can't believe you're making me wait. Do the
Okay, that should be all of them.
Whoa! So you've been planning this since we were in Aru Village?
Good night.
No task can be done without preparation. I just happened to notice a couple suspicious-looking people while you were out
Damn,
investigating.
I'll let her degrade me as well.
But instead
Goddamn.
of catching them right away, you let them report back.
I was expecting the
Those two who were snooping around
No,
were just a
she's
couple
fine as
small
hell.
fries. If we want to get the real
I don't think
catch,
so.
we have to be
Unless I
patient
wasn't
and
paying
give it some
attention.
time.
She already said it, so
Fuck.
I don't think you were paying attention.
Fuck, either that or I was in the bathroom.
You mean the funny name she mentioned back in Uncle Ampu's house? The wide-eyed butcher, scar-riddled bandit, Paimon can't remember them all.
That's just a bunch of drunk talk. Edgar and Delavar like to talk themselves up when they're drinking. Edgar, the wide-eyed butcher, and Delavar, the scar-riddled bandit, are the nicknames they came up with for themselves. Alcohol has a way of making people share what they really think. So Edgar and Delavar are always rambling in the tavern about how the Scarlet King is a superior deity.
What about Zaki?
He's just a numbskull who fell right into our trap. Zaki was probably the best hidden of them all. My initial plan was to find Delavar first, and then try to track him down.
D is too hot for cat puns.
That's what you wanted to ask when we were at Uncle Anpu's house, right? Jabari is one of the villagers you talked to. You know, the one who wanted to treat Isak and his grandpa to some food.
Wait, so he's a radical too?
No, he isn't. I just needed to tack on a random
How does that
villager
sound
name
like
to make
Milky
the
White
eavesdropper
chocolate?
think that I was making some wild
Fact.
guesses based on my impressions.
Wow, what a genius idea! Well, that's an expert mercenary for you.
Ah, you're too kind. It was straight from the usual playbook, if I'm honest.
So,
Are you looking for it?
that thing you were saying before, is it really true?
Hmm? About what?
About how mercenaries only care about Mora, and that anyone's a friend as long as there's a profit.
Does that bother you?
Absolutely not.
What makes you so sure?
Oh shit.
Dia, do you dislike the Dendro Archon like the other desert folk?
You two are pretty sharp. No, I don't have anything against the Dendro Archon.
Baby.
Oh my.
Whoa. Hi.
I've heard a lot of nice things about the Lesser Lord from Dunyarzad. I can understand her
baby.
devotion and gratitude. Dunyarzad's just an ordinary person. There's no way a god would be so involved in the lives of everyday people, unless they were truly compassionate.
Damn.
I've begun to realize that the sages are behind everything that's happened recently. The radicals' blind belief in the Scarlet King, making the Dendro Archon out to be an enemy. It's all the Academia's trickery. But I see through it all. And unlike them, I can never be hostile towards anyone who's never done anything wrong.
Dia.
Anyway, looks like we're done with business here. Traveler, lend me a hand. Let's tie him up and bring him to the village.
Ooh, hell yeah. Would you like the Boy Scout or Kinky? Thank goodness that Kato can't stand deep into my soul. She's
It should be all of them.
water.
I'll let you take it from here.
All right. I'll be in touch.
They slightly
Until then,
fruity.
Please stand by.
Also, I'm not gonna get over that Nunu literally has a crush on Traveler. That's so cute.
Candace will be okay on her own. I trust her, so you can too. She's been guarding Aru village for quite some time now.
Again,
if anyone
bye,
is
Traveler, bye,
qualified to
Traveler,
question
bye,
the
Traveler.
offenders, it's her.
While I'm
They got way
questioning
too many
them,
of the main cast.
why don't you pass some
being a
time
little
by
bit
exploring
too
the
friendly
area?
with our ass.
I'll meet you back
Nah,
here
I'm just
tomorrow
like-
morning, Traveler.
Act a fool, act a fool, act a fool. Nah!
As for these idiots, let's just hope they live to see another
Madam,
day.
can you insult me in every language you know how?
You heard the question. Now answer me. Ugh!
I know that's underground. As long as I don't lead the quest, I can explore a little bit more. Also, yeah, when I mentioned that this place is hell to explore— hi, this place is, like— that's scary. Nope, I just saw a vulture glitch itself into space. Oh yeah, it's totally underground. Disgusting. Ho ho. Hey he. Okay, the wall ends there, which means
Boring.
Right here, right now. Emerge. Rest and rebuild.
no Sansa. That's more of a— that's where your ritual school of fuckery is happening. Give me that. Thank God I fucked around and found out earlier. Okay, cool. It's this cell. I wonder if the pyramid will lead to a maze. Yes. I can tell you with my full chest it does.
Right here. Emerge. Let's move out.
Because if you see any of the waypoints I have not discovered, they're underground. Yeah, die please. Thank you.
would anyone want? Forget it.
Okay, yeah,
it's
they're
not
still
my
there.
concern.
Right now, emerge.
Enshroud! Forward!
Do not kill the fox boys! Shit.
One with the force.
Emerge. Right now. Right here.
Got your ass. Nice. Yeah, no, I'm hitting the wrong button. This, and this one, and this one are all underground, and then these are also underground. Yeah. It's called I Spent Way Too Much Time Exploring PRB. Okay. We'll be here. I'm gonna go stab boss.
What are my orders?
You're gonna help me fight something. Very quickly, I'm gonna go shank a bitch. I have no idea if I'm going the right way for this boss. Because they made it annoying and they put it like slightly farther. Are you tired? Gotcha. There he is. There's the bitch. Hello!
Is that the new boss?
Yeah, it's one of the two.
Two?
Yeah.
Right now. Emerge. Right now.
The other one's in the desert.
Hold the line. Access denied.
Nope.
Worthless.
I think a lot of people did.
Next on the agenda.
And he's only for
Right
Nilu.
here. Right now. Let's move out. Right here. Blaze over.
Yeah, what the fuck? Oh! Ah! Oh, the music hits though. Oh, I got an achievement.
Emerge. Right here. Allow me. No touching.
I don't know what I did. Interrupt the charge attack by aiming. Ooh. Hell yeah.
I can fix this. I'm just way out of
Oh shit.
Access denied. Useless.
Fuck.
Right now. Right here. Emerge.
What the fuck do you mean its crime resistance haven't improved?
Right now. Right here. Emerge.
Oh shit. Whoopsie. This is fine. We're okay.
Right now, right here.
Okay, cool. He does go down.
Uphill battle. Useless. No touching.
Catch my ass lacking.
Rest and rebuild.
Right now.
Useless.
Right here.
I'm just way out of practice.
I got another achievement. Huh. Oh, this one's also new. This is a new challenger one. Whoa! I may have lost my life, but I shanked the bitch. Holy shit, he gave me 3. He was like, here you go. Why is that the only pyramid that doesn't have a teleport near it? Oh, we're about to find out. Yeah, I was about to be like, I did not read a single thing of that. Please don't be a tunnel. Please go, please go, please go, please go, please go. Oh, fuck yeah! Son of a bitch. Please don't be there.
Worthless.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Here.
Hello? Oh, hey.
Useless.
Okay. That's
Born
neat.
of ice and frost. Allow me.
That's neat. Okay. So that's an easy way to get rid of those. Oh, thank God. Cool. What the fuck is this?
Right now, emerge. Right?
Access denied. Rest and rebuild. Useless.
Right here. Emerge.
Born of ice and frost.
They changed her bow sound.
There's nothing wrong with reaping a reward every now and then. Next on the...
Don't tell me all the fucking pyramids connect underground. Don't tell me.
Right now, right here. Emerge. No touching.
It sounds like all the weapons have sharper noises.
If it's useful, I'll take it.
Yeah. Oh my god, they all are fucking connected.
Boring.
Right now.
Born of ice and frost.
Back with Munchies, what I meant. I'm exploring another area because I don't want to skip the time, and as long as I don't exit, I'm good. Okay, I found it. And I've now discovered that most of the caves connect underground. Because, yeah. I will honestly come back for this later. Yeah, I'll come back for this later. Because, where am I heading right now? Actually, never mind, 'cause there's another teleport around here. Got it. How are you doing here, buddy?
Right. Useless.
Those little shits can attack me underground? Fuck me! Oh my god, this goes deeper. That's what she said. I don't think I was supposed to find this. I absolutely was not supposed to find this. Oh. Oh no. I found something I don't think I was supposed to find this early. Oh yeah, I'm not supposed to find this.
Let's move out.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm guessing it's some kind of hideout house. All of the pyramids, I'm assuming, connect underground. Because there's this one, and then there's these couple. Oh, checkpoint is ruined. Checkpoint is ruined. Welcome to fucking Genshin Impact! You have to hunt shit down to find it. See, you can't hate me, Kokomi. Why? Because I got your signature ass weapon on a whim.
Breathtaking.
She's adorable. Okay, that works.
Boring. Right here. Right now. Right here.
Poke line.
Ganya's here for a hot second because I just murdered a boss. Also, I defeated one of the new bosses, and I got 2 achievements out of it. Yeah. Confirm, mark the... I'd like to see where these are marked. Yeah, of course. Oh my god, why are we going so fucking fast? Well, this is fun. Damn.
Why would anyone want... Forget it.
Got what I needed.
It's not my concern.
I can't go explore that door yet. Another checkpoint found. Yeah, no, I'll have an easier time just walking out of here because there's the two things outside. I like this area so much. Speaking of, what is the time in this so far? Oh, it's only 2. Perfect. Yeah, my checkpoint is saved for now. There is a... I think... Hopefully, this is the last one that I have to find, and then I can get that domain. But at this point, this game also likes to forsake God, so... I don't know.
Right.
Nah, I'm just gonna keep going on my merry ass way. Okay.
Useless. Worthless. Right now, emerge.
Access denied.
Okay, yeah, this is a new cave. It's fine. Again, I could be completely wrong. This cannot be here. But new underground area. Let's go fuck around, find out. Unless, like, the actual... It's not here, never mind. Because, yeah, we fell into here. I honestly don't have a lot of time. I can honestly go looking for it. If you get killed, I'm letting Sino. I'm not even doing this for the story. I'm literally just like, hey, fuck around, find out energy. Wait, I think I know where it possibly can be. Guessing that all the temples might connect with each other. Wrong way. Oh, wait a sec. Damn. I want to see where this goes first. Shit. But also, this is just satisfying. Also, aw, damn, I was like, I think they put walls around here now so you can't fucking jump off.
Wait.
I might have found it. Open, please. Oh, what the ever-loving fuck? Oh, fun. Cool. It's fucking down here, isn't it? I said that as a joke. Welcome to I Fuck Around, I Find Out Too Often. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Nope. Not even gonna bother. Good sir, I'm trying to unlock all the
Why
waypoints.
would anyone want? Forget it. It's not my concern.
Fuck you. No, I'm pretty sure it's in there. I will get high clearance after. Fuck. I didn't get killed. I found the domain I've been looking for. Which means I got all of them. Oh, cool.
Hey, Dia.
Right on time.
Really not, but...
We'll know any moment now.
Paimon's been wondering. You seem to know Candace pretty well. Have you been friends for a long time?
We've known each other for some time now. She's a pretty interesting person. Even though she's an extremely strong warrior, she never misuses her powers against others.
Oh, Paimon knows what you mean. Like a lot of martial artists say, never take the fight outside the ring.
Yep, I guess you can put it that way. It takes strong convictions to be as dedicated as she is, and shoulder that kind of responsibility. Us mercs, on the other hand, we pretty much live from one day to the next.
Well, Paimon thinks you're great too.
Holy shit.
Really? Thanks for that.
Oh, she just started.
Zeno's here, and he's pretty early too.
Yes. I was here yesterday to help out a little.
To help out? By doing what?
Sharing some interrogation techniques.
Oh, you mean you taught Candace some more persuasive methods?
Right.
Persuasive S methods.
Come on in, everyone.
Yeah. Would you like to
Come
test
on.
some of that on me?
Let's go inside.
I'm sorry.
I can do it now.
I swear I'm ace. I swear I'm ace. Good sir, why are you climbing the wall?
That happened to me every time.
Brayden,
Candace, where? Whoa, you look
on live.
Do I? What gave it away?
Oh, there's no mask that can hide true bloodlust. Cover up your eyes, and it'll still show itself at the corners of your mouth.
Voice actress is alive.
Perhaps I need to work on my composure. Still, it's perfectly understandable why I'm angry. I'm sure everyone present would agree.
Yes, ma'am. Please, don't beat us anymore. We're gonna die.
Hey, yo.
Looks like Sino taught her well.
You fear death yourselves, yet you do not hesitate to place the lives of others at risk.
Now it's your turn.
The absurdity is mind-boggling.
Floofed.
The ones you
we
call
have the
mad
cats who can get
scholars
floofed.
are known to
She's
us
currently
as
getting
the
pets,
village keepers.
But fuck, she's
They
hot.
are vital members of our community, and some even count them as family. You come here to my village, and you treat my people as nothing more than stepping stones towards your goal.
Look at her face.
Tell me, what would you do to you in my position?
Mercy! Please have mercy!
You've made your bed. We may both be desert dwellers, but there is one thing that I understand better than you.
She's hot.
The resurrection of the Scarlet King will only result in war. And war serves no one. The people of Aru Village care little about which god is in power. Life may be tough and tiring, but we wish to preserve our way of life. A war would only cause us to lose all that we have. And that is not a responsibility that you can afford to shoulder.
We understand. We're sorry.
I guess the one white man.
I'll tell you everything I know. Please, just let us go.
I'm listening.
You might not believe this, but it wasn't us who came up with this idea. Someone was spreading rumors in the tavern. That's how we ended up hearing about the Scarlet King's resurrection. Some mystery man told us that mad scholars will make the perfect sacrifice to usher in the Scarlet King's resurrection.
Candace, because if it's a
They
Latin
give their
name for
lives,
her.
and we can get anything we
So
wish
blue hair's
for.
Kandake.
They're called village keepers. Slip up again, and you'll regret it.
Yes, sorry. It was all that mystery man's doing. He told us to spread word about the Scarlet King's resurrection and talked us into helping him. In return, he said he'll help facilitate the resurrection process.
Fuck me, I'm gay. Where are the village keepers now?
I'm not sure.
You're worthless!
That's one.
What?
Huh? One what?
Strike. You get a total of 3. Then, you die by my hand.
Okay, yeah, this is good. This is a
I'm
good
telling
ass.
the truth. We don't know anything. It was all him.
2.
He got us to lure them out of their houses in the night with some kind of incense. We take them to a junction outside the village. Then the mystery guy takes them from there.
I swear I'm ace, but fuck.
You gotta believe me, please. I'm telling the truth, I swear. Just ask them if you don't believe me.
I mean, I got a voice kink. I've known that for years.
That was indeed the truth.
Just like right after saying
Traveler, go on.
say that specific word.
I'm ace, but fuck me. No, it is the funniest shit. Cause now,
You have to
like,
believe me.
people know
If
that
I
I'm
knew
ace.
that, I
will
would
say
have
the
told
most
you his name right
out-of-pocket
away.
sexual
I'm not
shit
risking
in my
another
life.
beating to keep
And
his
they'll be like,
secrets.
I want
No
to
way.
tell you, but I cannot tell you. So can I
that
just
guy,
mentally
he wears a
suck your
cloak,
dick?
and he's always careful to cover his face. He calls himself the Scarlet King's envoy.
I believe I may know what's going on.
Uncle Anpu? What do you mean?
Smooth.
Oh well, I
Okay,
never knew
speak.
Sano could threaten people so
If
easily.
my suspicions
He
are
has to
correct,
hunt down people who
this
like.
mystery
He
man
literally
they
has to
speak
hunt down the
of
people who have
could
done wrong
be
in his
from
school.
the
Makes
academia.
sense. But also, fuck.
Some time ago, people from the academia attempted to take the village keepers away. I refused, insisting that they are part of our
It's
community.
Hydro, it says masquerade.
It
If we do
strikes
not have
me
a
now
masquerade
that this
scene,
secretive
I'm gonna be
character
pissed.
shares the same goal they had.
Which means it's highly likely that the academia was purposely spreading a false rumor to trick the radicals into delivering the village keepers right into their
Those
hands.
radical leftists trying to summon a king.
They were the ones who brought them here to begin with. Now they're trying to take them back? We aren't gonna let that happen.
Not the academia again.
Hey, bro, at this point, they do all the shit.
Just as I thought. But what could they want with the village keepers?
People are nothing but tools in the eyes of the academia. A change in their plans likely means they found another way to exploit the scholars.
Yeah, it's called The Man Who Likes to Do Experiments on
Regardless,
Children.
our top priority now is locating the village keepers.
It's called they're doing stupid shit
You're
with a man
Isak
who
is
works
still
for
waiting for
Russia
news on
and
his
who's a
grandpa.
doctor who's also medically
Time to go.
insane.
Let's
but they
leave the
took a
village and try to
puppet
track
of
them
the
down.
Woman,
Yes.
the woman who did not
Pack up
abandon
and get
him.
ready to leave.
You got it. Candace, I'll let you deal with the radicals. Leave everything outside the village to us. All right.
Yeah.
Let's meet back here once everyone's ready.
Pretty boy. Oh, thank God I get hero wits. I need them. I went completely Brrr when you mentioned Russia, but it's okay.
Food in us and then we'll
Yeah,
move.
Sejnaya. Whoa, hi. Sejnaya
Where did you
is
come
based
from?
off of like the last place we visit in this game before we
Well,
reach Conria
As you can see,
is
I'm merely sitting here
based
and
in
reviewing
Russia.
what we have deduced thus far.
And Del Torre is one of the Fatui, which is like the big guy guys of Sejnaya.
Musing to yourself? Where have you been anyway?
Is he reading physics books? Is this the last part of the Archon?
Hey, what's with the silence?
Not yet.
You never think things through before asking questions. I'm giving you some time to make up for that.
Thank God.
Paimon's so mad. Paimon's gonna give you an ugly nickname.
Try me. Go ahead, I won't stop you. Yes, the fuck I will.
Never mind.
Academic
Paimon's
bitch.
got nothing. There's just nothing super obvious to pick with this guy. Makes it so hard.
Child ass wannabe.
Well, you've heard nothing to suggest I left this whole time. So clearly, I
Okay,
stayed
he's
in
a
the
broody
village to
motherfucker. Well,
investigate.
that's a broody motherfucker.
Anyway,
They're in the same range of
you plan to
motherfuckers.
leave Aru village and keep searching for the truth of this matter, yes?
You got a one broody smart
We're
ass
not gonna
motherfucker
find out anything
who
more
knows
by
how to use a
staying
sword
here.
while you
So we
got
thought that we might
a
as well take the search elsewhere.
No. Smart ass motherfucker. Smart ass.
Enough with the silent treatment.
No. I'm just surprised that you decided to team up with him.
So you got the one smart
All
ass
Hatham.
motherfucker.
You haven't helped us out at all ever since we arrived at Aru village.
Speaking of.
Bold of you to question our
Who's sneaking as shit
choices.
and works for an organization that fucking hates us.
I wouldn't say he works for them.
Meanwhile, and who deceived us. Meanwhile,
No,
to a
we
certain
deceived
degree.
him too. They were
Yeah,
both-
you're all
it was,
talk.
Yes,
mutual deceit. What?
While you
Yes,
were investigating, I had my own work
How
to do,
dare you!
which I've now
How
finished.
dare you!
Really? Paimon doesn't believe
bullied.
you.
To be honest,
No.
we aren't really a team, so I have no obligation to inform you of my whereabouts. Not to mention that going separate ways allowed me to find some important information that you all had missed.
They're on the same spectrum. They're not the same,
Right
but they're on
here
the
in the
spectrum.
village?
I'm sorry,
Correct.
Sarah's smoking you.
What
It's
did
like,
you
I feel
learn?
bad for all the people. It's about to be quiet.
I'm
I
going
was
to
scared,
take
but
you to
still fucking
someone.
yelling.
But
What does that mean?
how do you think the residents of Aru village feel about what we're doing? In other words, do you truly believe every single word the villagers tell us?
I still love the Kato, so no hard feelings.
You mean some of them lied to us?
Of course.
Hiding the truth does not necessarily equate to lying. Again, these people have their reasons. Remember what Gandis said?
Yeah, the Kato stuck
Most
with me
people
for the
in
next 2
Aru
years.
village don't necessarily care which deity is in charge of Sumeru. That's because whether the Scarlet King or the Dendro Archon has power is of little significance to them. By contrast, the perils of their daily lives are ever-present concerns. They won't simply share everything they know with you without good reason. That's why you believed there was no further information to be found in this village.
Oh, and got Kantake. Yes, I have her stream pulled up in the back. Oh, and she got Sino.
Glad you're following along. Among
Electro
those you have
Archon got
talked to,
Sino.
there's someone who was consciously keeping you out of the loop. In fact, she's been observing your every move since you arrived. The reason being, to someone who only wants to live their life in peace, any external factors introduce unpredictability into the equation.
I thought he was Pyro.
Those eyes. Those fierce eyes. You.
Yeah,
You look
that's
like
also
a
because
real
in the thing
fighter.
you can see like the red on his belt.
That's what I was talking about.
Don't change the subject.
So a lot of people thought, yeah.
It's quite obvious that she's intimidated by Sino's authority and strength.
Okay, you bitch ass motherfucker. Why don't you
Right.
go fuck your roommate?
You were asking about the mad scholars.
Yes, I did.
She corrected herself mid-sentence because she's aware that there are Scarlet King fanatics in the village. If she sounds too friendly
You
towards the
love
village
me.
keepers, she could
You love
easily
my
make herself the
ass.
radicals' next target.
I think it's been a few days since I last saw them. I usually go to bed pretty
Not
early,
with the fan
so
art, though, with him
I'm not
and
too
him
familiar
and
with
Zena,
what goes on at
spicy.
night.
Remember? She made a point of denying her involvement in anything that occurs at night.
But honestly, I feel quite sympathetic towards them. Even though they act a little strange,
even I get tired of
they've helped me
myself.
in the past. If it weren't for them, my house would have collapsed long ago.
My brain goes burr.
After speaking to the village chief, it became clear that the village keepers had protected Aru village at night. In other words, the young miss was very much awake during that time.
I cannot get over how like dark this screen is compared to that one. So I think this one's the correct one. I think
By
this one
getting
is just set
involved
for
with
what
an
I play.
outsider, she risks drawing
If I
unwanted
must be
attention to
wild with
herself.
Sino.
As for why she might be so wary about all
Which I
this,
can understand because like he admires
maybe you should
him,
ask her.
But also, yeah, it's really
I'll
spicy.
pass on this one. You said that she is afraid of me. If so, it's best if I stay out of this.
We're on it.
Oh, Lenine was smiling. I didn't even catch that for a hot sec. Hello, you lying cunt. I'd like to have a word with you.
Miss Shawnee, as we discussed earlier, I've brought someone
The
with
fact that you can see his abs.
Mr. Alhaitham, I'm aware of where you stand, but how can I make sure that your friends think the same as you?
Huh? What do you mean? We need to clarify our stance or
I'm
something?
pretty sure I missed.
Go ahead and talk to
Shut
her.
up to Paimon, but I
You'll
heard
get the
it.
answers you want. Go on. Earn her trust.
Oh, fuck me.
Is it really
I
that
don't
simple?
trust people easily. How the fuck do you think I can earn other people's trust? I'm stupid.
May I call you Traveler?
Hold up. I gotta do something. Ayo. I'm hitting random buttons. I literally cannot read what it is. Did I do that without reading it? I'm
Hi,
pretty sure I
Traveler.
just accepted
I
something
want
without
to ask
reading
you
it 'cause it was
something.
all in another language.
Do you think the resurrection of the Scarlet King can truly change Sumeru for the better?
About to check. No.
Why's that? That's very
Only
similar
results
to
in
what Miss Candace says. I know you two are friends. That's why I'm willing to talk to you, even though I do have some reservations. Before,
Yeah, no, we're gonna
I wouldn't
finish.
even
I'm gonna
have the
finish this up
courage
and
to
then
ask
tomorrow
something like
I'll
this.
do the
Traveler,
I'll do the Mondstadt
do you
quest
believe
so we can meet
our
Mika, but
lives
I'm
will
gonna
get
explore
better?
The desert.
Yeah, we came here from another nation, so it isn't wrong of you
We
to be
came here from
weary.
another fucking
And
world.
we aren't really residents of any one nation. But even so, we've met lots of people from different places, and we've always fought for what we believed in. We have friends in Sumeru, and we want to help them. That's why we decided to stay here for a while.
I want to trust you. My apologies for posing my questions like that. To be honest, I didn't expect you to come back for more information.
Well, I'm weird like that.
Oh, Haytham told us you have your reasons. It's okay. We understand.
The fact is that only one side of my family is desert folk. I don't really fit in anywhere in Sumeru. Some believe in the Dendro Archon, while others believe in the Scarlet King. I don't belong to either side, and neither side would want me.
Speaking of which, the radicals mentioned that they despise traitors. Do they just think that anyone who's different from them is a traitor?
Yeah. Some people can be so narrow-minded when it comes to bloodline and beliefs. It makes no difference what I say or how I behave. I'll always be suspected of having ulterior motives. Slowly, I just stopped talking to people. I pretended not to hear or see anything.
No, at this point I'm calling
All I want is to live my life in peace.
Hidake because she's hotter.
And then it happened. The village keepers who had helped me disappeared with no explanation. And I didn't dare breathe a word about it to anyone. Until now.
You can tell them. I'm sure she'll keep your secret.
All right. I'll tell you what I told Alhaitham. I actually have a sharper sense of hearing than most.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I hear strange crying sounds in the night.
There are ghosts?
My god, Paimon, we've met ghosts.
I'm not sure.
We fucking befriended
It's faint, but it's definitely the sound of crying. It comes from far away in the distance, and always carries very raw emotion. It used to be louder and more frequent, but ever since you arrived in the village, it doesn't seem to happen as often, and when it does, it's much quieter. I have to focus really hard to make it out.
I confirmed this with the guards on night duty. They also have someone with a good ear, and he's heard similar sounds at night. But because we're in the middle of a desert, you would rather believe that they are the cries of beasts than ghosts.
There's really nothing around these parts, except for an old hospital not far from the village.
I think they used to use it for treating Elazar, but it's been abandoned for years.
I hate playing through Sumeru after school. I'm immersed myself in a fantasy where not hearing the words research or thesis or academia or learning. Get away, you're reminding me of my deadline. Oh god. Adventure time! Paimon must need a vibe. She honestly does. Like, I don't say this a lot of times, but Paimon does need it. Like, need to get fucking slapped.
What? I don't have anything in my hands. What are you talking about?
Sorry, I read something in the side. Damn, I'm surprised this place doesn't have a... One second, I need to respond to something. Yep, right now we're sulking on Genshin. Alright, cool. Will they attack me? The answer is yes.
Ooh, is this the place? It's in terrible shape. Ah, monsters, watch out!
Fuck, that went in the wrong spot. I didn't want it to go.
Next on the agenda. Right now, right here, right now.
Where do you think you're going?
I know, just running away from her problems like always. Oh, fuck me.
Where do you think you're going?
Rest and rebuild! Let's move out.
Why is Ganyu so squishy?
This is
Yeah, Bowies are squishy as fuck.
Right here. Emerge. Right now.
hold the line.
Emerge.
There we go. Okay.
They were easier to deal with than Paimon had expected. Super strong.
I'd say my top 3 characters in
You look
Genshin
super
is
serious.
Child,
We gotta stay on our A game too.
Oh, so you have a type from the mysterious motherfuckers.
Shut up!
This is the one.
Shut your mouth! This is abuse. I won't stand for this.
Let's go in and take a look.
So you're into yes. How does it feel never to be held as a child?
Shut up! Shut up!
Hey, Ethan, we haven't found Squad. Are you sure we aren't wasting
Again,
our time
I'm a shout and
Patience.
fucking
Shawnee
Scaramouche
says she only
kitty.
hears the crying at
You
night.
have all of the
We have
ammo to
time to
shoot my
burn.
way. I got
Until
the
then.
mommy issues, I got the daddy issues, I got the abandonment issues, I got dead friends.
I'm taking a break.
I got the betrayal. That was hot.
Just like
That's a
that.
bomb.
He sits
I got
down.
the betrayal up my ass.
Wait, he even brought a book to read?
Me.
What are you reading? Let Paimon see.
Is this fucking physics?
Okay, sure.
Huh? The natural position, which is the positional propensity of an entity
Oh, it's
in
fucking physics.
natural motion.
I hate
In
physics so much in my
contrast
life.
with an object in forced motion.
So, you got that?
No, but surprisingly,
Paimon gives
yes.
up. You keep reading your book. See ya.
Not the eye roll from Paimon.
How is he so relaxed? Look at him, reading an impossible book in a creepy place like this. Hey, Paimon's your Tibet travel guide. Huh? And anyway, it's not Paimon's fault that the...
Why did I pay attention to this constellation?
Paimon's getting so sleepy. Huh? What was that sound?
There it is. It's coming from that direction.
They, motherfucker. They. There. What? Where?
Is the sound coming from here? Huh. Paimon's not seeing anything.
Paimon.
It's from below.
I'm sorry, you told me your 3
There's no
top
way
favorite
we can
characters.
get
I have
down
so much
there.
ammunition on you.
That's so mean.
Something is off about the interior here.
How does it feel people not trusting you?
Actually, it's me who has the trust issue. I trust people too easily, and it always gets broken. Every time.
As I thought.
Whoa. It's like they... Oh, it looks like there are other...
No, I'm heading back upstairs. Why? Because there was an Oculus. You bitch. Fuck me. Wait. Where's the Oculus? There it is.
Let's go gather some samples.
Oh my god, those motherfuckers went a full on. That's cool.
Keep up.
Right here. Emerge.
Rest and rebuild.
Get out of my way!
Okay. Good night, see. Hopefully see you tomorrow. Yeah.
Right now.
Have a good night.
Right.
Can't see.
I hear you laughing. Shut up. I appreciate Steve. Because I appreciate C! She gets the higher voice of appreciation! Fuck off, you cunt! Not you!
Right now.
The other bitch ass.
One with the farm.
A brash maneuver. Rest and rebuild.
The other bitch ass motherfucker. The motherfucker that's trying to kill me. What do you perceive in your world? Is it the phantoms?
Yeah. Can't see.
Emerge. Right here.
Allow me.
Useless.
Oh no. Oh no. Why is this screamed out for?
Look, there's someone over there. Good idea. Let's approach him.
It like screams Tori working here.
Wait,
Because one of the things is blank, and all the ones that have been blank have been related to him.
you're...
He can't speak, and his eyes are unfocused. Also, why is he the only one?
Didn't expect to see him here.
Who the fuck is he?
You know him?
Can we say names?
He's Razak, a senior of mine at the Academia.
Well, shit.
He's a scholar too? Is he the kind that holds up in a forest and mumbles stuff about training?
No, and that's the problem. Razak was never involved in any of those things. He never trained in the fort.
So how
Leaving
the
that
fuck did
question
he become
aside
like
for the
this?
moment, Him being here alone means that we might be too late. Looks like they've already taken everyone away. For whatever reason, they left Razak here. Perhaps they simply didn't have time to come back for him. There are drag marks on the ground. They're clearer by the doorway. Someone was forcefully drawing a cart that was loaded with something heavy.
Loaded with people?
That is one possibility. It looks like they were in a hurry, as if they were afraid of being caught. In their haste, they failed to notice Razak hiding in a corner. The symptoms are identical. Looks like we found living proof.
Huh? Why do you say that?
Allow me to jog your memory. Recall your time at Port Ormos.
No, because that's been a
Don't
while ago.
you think his symptoms look familiar?
Wait a second. Oh shit, never mind, I remember. I remember that scene. Oh yes, please show me this hot ass scene again.
Unfortunately, that's it.
Damn.
Oh, now that you mention it, they're acting the same way.
Correct. The academia is behind all of this. It isn't difficult to deduce their rationale. First, the academia spread a false rumor of the Scarlet King's resurrection, emphasizing the role of the village keepers, the mad scholars who were exiled to Aru village. These rumors were all the persuasion that the radicals needed, and those based in Aru village leapt into action. Unbeknownst to them, of course, through rounding up the scholars, they were actually helping the academia. As well as being able to exploit the radicals for their own ends, this scheme has one further advantage to the academia. All the risks and responsibilities are offloaded onto the Scarlet King's followers. Life for the Desert Dwellers has been brutal ever since the Scarlet King's death all those years ago. Beneath the surface, feelings of desperation are widespread. Many would give everything they have for the prospect of something better. Anyone looking to exploit that for their own ends simply needs to make a few empty promises. Even if complications arise, people will see that those involved are all followers of the Scarlet King and look for no further explanation than differences of belief. A deep-seated mistrust of the desert and everyone in it by the rest of Sumeru will make sure of that. The notion of an academia plot wouldn't even cross their minds. It may seem like a simple strategy, but it is able to work wonders under Sumeru's current circumstances.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's in line with the village chief's theory, too. But there's still one very important question. Wasn't it the academia that brought the scholars to Aru village in the first place? Why does it want them back now?
Throughout this process, one thing has changed. The scholars' identity. First, they were scholars. Then, they became lunatics. After that, they were exiles. And finally, they become missing persons. An exile is still patently a living, breathing human being. But when someone becomes a missing person, that is brought into question. If you can't find someone, you have no way of knowing what exactly happened to them. That makes missing people an ideal resource.
Resource? For what exactly?
One possibility is that the information in their brains could be extracted into knowledge capsules.
Extracted? You mean canned knowledge comes from people's brains?
With the technology of the Sumeru
No, it comes through the
Academia,
fucking
it's
chest,
entirely
dumbass.
possible. Perhaps
Sorry,
the
I
process
hate
caused
Paimon
them
finding
great
out the fucking
suffering,
obvious now.
which is why they cry out in the dead of night, when no one is watching them.
So, the human brain... Nope, nah, Paimon doesn't want to think about this.
I'm the Academia scribe, after all. I'm familiar with their projects. Anyway, judging by Razak's state, the contents of a divine knowledge capsule were extracted from his mind. But something went wrong in the process. Or perhaps his curiosity got the better of him, and he used such a capsule for himself.
Paimon's a little confused. Can they just use anyone's brain?
Yes, probably. It's a fucking brain. Paimon. Oh, shit.
The look on your face tells me you've realized the answer.
Oh, shit.
That's right. To some scholars, gaining knowledge about the gods is their entire life's pursuit. Extracting canned knowledge is just one of the extreme measures they turn to. However, I can't help but wonder, what do they seek to gain from divine knowledge? The academia is going out of their way to look for forbidden knowledge, but what is their ultimate goal? I've spent quite some time trying to analyze the contents of the divine knowledge capsule, but to no avail. It seems like my way of thinking is too different from theirs.
You mean you're not even slightly interested in getting your hands on this forbidden stuff?
All scholars seek to expand the horizons of knowledge, but I'm not particularly interested in gods, so I don't share their degree of zealotry. Extracting information from people as if they were lifeless objects?
Oh, it's you Hot Topic wanted me, you blue hair son of a bitch! I
Then the
slipped him!
academia may as well shut its doors.
Sorry, I just found the TikTok!
Of course.
I just found
The
TikTok
academia's actions run contrary to their
Oh my god, I
rules.
feel like an idiot!
Whether it be academics or knowledge, everything has its boundaries. If those
Son of
lines
a
are
bitch.
crossed,
I had
rules
the
and order
wordings
that
correct. I
govern
just had the
everything
order
in the
wrong.
world
You've
will be
done
destroyed.
nothing but destroy
This
my
matter
life. I
needs to
hope
be
you both
corrected,
die.
just like fixing a typo in a book.
Wait, didn't you step in to help because you felt sympathy for those poor people?
Not to be callous, but no.
There it is.
My criteria
There
are
he
a
is.
little more
There.
restrictive than that. There is no shortage of suffering in Sumeru, and the same can be said for the rest of Teyvat as well. What do you plan to do about that? Save every last person?
Probably not. Paimon's not sure.
Oh, there we go. I can now switch it to English.
You can say that. Simply put, I don't blindly place my faith into strength or heroism.
I'm
I
so
do
sorry
what
to
I
any
want.
people watching and they
The
were just
divine knowledge
vibing
capsule is
and
something
just
I
heard
want
the
to
yell of
investigate in full.
pain.
That doesn't mean I'm willing to take action for the sake of a few strangers.
Look for a better outlet. God damn it, Traveler.
Paimon's been wanting to say this for a while.
Damn, just because you
There
want
are
to
a lot
harm
of
a
bad
rich
guys
boy
in
doesn't
the
mean you need to take
academia,
his
but
ass.
You're not one of them. You're their weirdo.
Hey, fuck off.
Though I must say, I
Hey,
quite enjoy
hey,
this feeling of
he might be
being
a
the odd
weirdo,
one out.
but he's our weirdo.
Uniqueness
Fucking
is
kidding.
also an asset,
Shoot me if I ever
is
say
it
that
not?
shit again.
Wow, that's a great way to think about it.
I'm just a more likable person than her in general. There's nothing... He won't last long if we leave him here. We'll work out our next step after we
Damn. Hey, friend, buddy, fell pal. The fuck happened? Trying to figure it out.
We're back.
You must be tired. You should rest and take some water.
What's the situation?
Who's this?
Unfortunately, somebody who's too young to take on the role of Isak's grandfather.
Wait, now we gotta explain the whole situation again because fuck my life. Oh my god, it's almost 12. Ayo.
So, at one point in time,
estimate
the abandoned Elazar hospital served as the academia's site for extracting divine cant knowledge.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay, yeah.
Their plan must have been implemented at some point before we arrived at Aru village.
Oh yeah, I'll do that tomorrow.
Since divine cant knowledge has been in circulation for a while now.
I wanna go with Anne.
They fled once we were headed to the village.
I don't know how long.
Almost as if they knew we were on their trail. Why is that?
Because I can finish tomorrow.
Yeah, why is that?
We may have a mole in our midst.
Oh shit, what?
One of us could be secretly revealing our whereabouts to the academia.
Says the one who still has the fucking thing in his ear.
Huh? Are our friendships that shallow?
It's kind of a special one.
No, because it doesn't light up.
Looks
and I
like
think it
none of
only
you have
activates
realized
in
wherein
City.
lies the issue.
But I could be wrong. Yeah, because he's not. You don't. Oh no, wait. Yes, he is.
Yeah, I think it's a special one.
Sino.
You whore.
You're the reason why they can predict our movements.
You fuck. What?
Wait, what's that supposed to mean?
Don't tell me Sino's shit.
Choose your next words very carefully.
Fuck.
It is simply a logical inference. I have my reasons.
Look, any man.
So what you're saying is, Sino's the mole. Interesting. And here I thought you were the most suspicious one, Al-Haytham, since you were always acting alone.
I know. You have a point. But I realized something as we were returning from the hospital. Sino isn't like any of us.
What?
What are you trying to say?
Do you still remember who you are, General Mahamatra?
Oh shit. Oh, not the eyes. The eyes.
As a Matra, you are no doubt privy to certain kinds of information. Before you can take action against someone, you are required to have all the facts available, including the less than savory details. Simply put, the academia has traditionally allowed you access to a wealth of sensitive information. Knowing their modus operandi, wouldn't you expect them to take precautions against you?
Uh-oh. Look at Dia's face.
If you want to raise a vicious wolf, you need to make sure that you can avoid its bite.
The academia is monitoring me?
It's not that simple. The academia has eyes all over Sumeru, but they have a special protocol for dealing with you. Every so often comes a Nyagarbaha Day. On this day, the academia enters new information into the Akasha through knowledge
Oh no,
captures.
my boy!
I remember seeing the thick notebook next to the control panel once. Its contents were all about the General Mahamatra.
No,
his
they
activities
tortured my
throughout the day,
boy!
preferred methods of enacting judgment, everything.
You're saying that the academia entered my information into the Akasha too? But what's the point in doing that? My actions aren't important enough to be added into the Akasha.
The Akasha is capable of computation.
What? No, my boy!
The Akasha's
No, my boy being
algorithms
hurt
are
by the- Oh,
entirely
I'm slapping a
capable of
bitch.
predicting your movements using
Hey,
the
Scaramouche,
data
you want
entered.
me? You want to burn down the
When
city
you
with
would
me?
depart,
Actually, wait, no. Hey,
the
Del
route
Torre,
you would
I brought your
follow,
lighter.
your destination. It knew all of this.
Oh shit, Dia's gonna lose her
It
shit.
predicted my every move.
No, my
The
boy.
academia has been watching you longer than you think.
No! You didn't do anything wrong! You didn't know!
So that's how it is. Sino adheres to his principles so strongly that he's actually a thorn in their side. Tenacity of will and steadfast faith are worthless to the academia.
I have
They
no
need
idea if
scholars
the
who
mic
are
can pick
easily
up her sound,
pliable
so
and
you're just gonna
mindlessly
random
go
cat
after
noise
anything they
randomly.
can profit from. Sino, don't take it to heart. This just proves how much of a trustworthy ally you are.
Oh. He's still gonna beat himself over
They
the head.
escaped because of me.
Yes,
Don't blame yourself. It's not like any
I'm
of us
skipping
would have known.
Exactly.
I have an idea.
What are you gonna do?
If they predicted my movements, then I might be able to guess where they went.
Whoa, you bounced back fast.
There is always an opportunity for safety after danger passes.
Oh, so that's how it is. Paimon gets it now. If the academia is trying to avoid Sino, then the safest place guess would be...
No offense, I love Gani. She was my second 5-star. But I have favorites.
Yep, that's right.
They'll want to proceed in the direction opposite of where I'm going.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I must go.
Uh-oh.
There's also something I want to investigate.
Let's go, guys! After him!
Oh, shit.
Please, wait! I want to
You are
go
a child.
too.
You want to go too?
She is
If
so
so,
unnecessarily pretty!
You have to
I want to find Grandpa.
Everyone, I leave him in your hands.
Yay! Let's go!
No.
Paimon feels like...
No. Shut up! Alright. Actually, no, I need to see what, because I can get through here. Alright. This is where I'm ending stream. I'm just going there just because I'm... This is where I end stream for today. We have the command pre-prepped. This channel has followers, subscribers only. My bad. Which means Chow is not good. But yeah. I know you bitches follow. I know who's in here. But yeah. Since today's Thursday, you'll be seeing me tomorrow. I will fix all my shit later tomorrow. Because that was really annoying. But yeah. I will see you later. Bye.